positions on staff. About 104 actually are local and here full-time in the community. And our advanced practice providers who are physician's assistants and nurse practitioners. So Will Cook, any of you know Will Cook? Will is our new CEO who will be coming, joining Vail Health in January 7th to be exact. I'll hand over the baton. He is just one swell guy. He is a really good guy. He's coming from the University of Colorado Health Hospital, where he is the CEO and has been there a number of years. He's been involved with systems and he's worked overseas in his career, but he really has a mindset to want to be in an independent hospital at this point in his career. He and his wife and 2 children have owned a home here in Vail in the Cordillera area for about 2.5 years now. So they know the area, they love the area, and he's aligned with the board in terms of remaining independent. So one of the questions I get from staff is, coming out of UC Health, are you going to be like Steve? It's like, no, there's no desire and there's no move to do anything like that. We will remain independent. So what's happening at our hospital? What's going to happen in 2020? As you can see from this slide, it shows a new building that has a helipad on top of it and a new entrance. So the new entrance to the hospital, the front door will be off of the frontage road, south frontage road. So we'll take the majority of traffic off of Meadow Drive, which you probably know it's a good thing. Summer, winter, off season now. It's important to reduce the traffic on Meadow Drive. So the emergency department will be on the so the emergency department will be in this area here, front door here, and you'll come in as level 3. And radiology imaging will be here next door to the ER. And the ambulances will be housed in this area, so that you can't see the drive, but today this is not most updated picture, but they will come off of the frontage road and inside. So we'll have indoor unloading of patients from the ambulance. And then the ambulance district will relocate to the 4th floor for their sleep quarters and their offices, where they currently have a separate building at the hospital now. But they'll be moving here. These 2 floors are actually vacant. There's space available, but we're under a covenant with Vail Resorts because the land that it sits on was a gift to the hospital, but not really a gift, about 50 years ago, to say that you could be on this property as long as you are 501c3, not for profit, and as long as every building or every access point on the land is medical use. So medical use will go into that floor at some point in time. The master facility plan, as you know, the west wing was completed in 2017. That was an additional 4th floor. The 720 housed the 4th floor, and then we remodeled throughout the hospital. So we have a new ICU, we have new patient rooms, independent or private patient rooms that we've added as well that are done. That's behind us now. So, as I said, we'll have expanded medical staff spaces of the Vail Summer Orthopedics will relocate out of the medical professional building, which is the bank building, and they'll relocate to be just underneath the new lobby on the 2nd floor with great access when you enter the parking structure. We actually will have 410 new parking spaces. Again, meets the town Vail formula for employee formula ratio to square footage. So that's all working. It's going to be exciting when it's done, and that will be done at the end of 2020. So quality is our top priority, and so we involve ourselves in many different organizations and many different rating groups to be sure that what we are saying that we're doing with quality care is actually measured and then submitted. So CMS, which is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, they require that all hospitals across the country participate in what they call their 4- and 5-star rating. We're 4-star, and we've maintained that for a number of years. How that compares to other hospitals, UC Health has been 1-star over the years. So again, we have a very high quality rating. There are many measurements that we have to adhere to, collect data on as we care for patients and send it into CMS on a quarterly basis. Our patient satisfaction scores are now in the 90th percentile. They have been for a number of years. Have any of you received anything from us in the last year if you've been a patient? So we moved to press gaming, and we now can get patient satisfaction surveys done through text, through email, phone, and then snail mail. Medicare requires that we still do mail out satisfaction surveys, so we're very proud of those. Our cancer treatment center at Shaw is wonderful. We have 97% breast cancer survival rate, which is 5% above the national rate. And our prostate cancer survival rate is 96%, which is 8% above the national rate. Our Joint Commission, which is an accreditation group that works at hospitals across the country on a regular basis, they have a book now that there's over 1,000 standards that hospitals have to meet on an ongoing basis. And they just visited us in March and gave us a Pioneer in Quality notoriety accreditation, along with our 3-year accreditation that we get when they come. And it's good. They can find any deficiencies. They come in unannounced. We know a window of about 7 months that they could come. And they come in unannounced with a group of 5 surveyors. And so the physician surveyor and the nurse surveyor will quickly go find nursing and doctors and follow a patient that day all the way through, after having surgery, from pre-op, the care that they observe the care, into the operating room, observe the care, post-op care, and then they look at the medical record to make sure that it's all documented appropriately. We don't know anything about it ahead of time. They do the choosing when they come. It's pretty exciting. And then we have folks who go to our environment of care, so all of our plant services and infection control services and monitoring. They have taken down ceiling tiles and used flashlights before to look up to see how clean it is above ceiling tiles and how our chases are for the pipes that we have and cleanliness. And so it's pretty good, but just understand that our hospital has exceeded all of those standards every time we've had a survey in the last 10 years, which is every 3 years. Excellence in patient satisfaction, we were named that by the National Health Office, one of the America's Best Hospitals for Obstetrics by Women's Choice Awards, and also America's Best Hospital for Orthopedics for Women's Choice. So it's pretty, again, it all focuses on the quality and the outcomes of the care that is provided. These are the many, many services that our physicians and our partners offer here in the Vail Valley and in the community and through the hospital. We have 24/7 emergency care. We're a level 3 trauma center. In addition to all of our ER doctors being board certified in trauma and emergency medicine, also we have the trauma doctors, so our general surgeons who are also board certified, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, available to take care of any emergent trauma injury that would happen. We hope that doesn't happen, but we do have about 50 a year, and we can stabilize them and then send them by helicopter or ground to Denver hospitals where we maintain and keep them here. And we have a cardiac cath lab. Urgent care. So urgent care is for the minor illnesses. It's not for the true emergency life or death situation or broken bone situation. So we have urgent care, and Jefferson we have that in Vail as well. Our competitor, Creek, has urgent care as well, and we are. But we do really well. We have a lot of locals and visitors who actually come in for the minor treatment items. A family birth center, level 2 nursery, which means babies who are born prematurely or anywhere from 32 weeks, between 32 weeks and 40 weeks, we can keep them in our nursery and grow them there. Their level 2 nursery means that we have special nurse practitioners who actually are in the nursery 24 hours a day to take care of the smaller babies when they come in, or when they're born, when they come into the world. And we have, we've become a leader in the reduction of C-sections at our hospital. That's something that nationally that's looked at, and hospitals have reduced reimbursement, and their C-section rate is too high. And we've been a statewide leader in the protocols we've put in place. So no longer can a woman decide, I'm going to have a C-section, I'm going to have it on this date, and it's going to happen, and it happens. You can't do that anymore. Not to say it happened very much, but it does happen. Cardiovascular center, Dr. Greenberg, Dr. Prager, Kelly runs the Coumadin Clinic. Dr. Greenberg and Prager kind of like to refer to themselves as the plumber and the electrician. So Dr. Prager takes care of the electrical parts and he puts in the pacemakers and also the internal defibrillators, and then Dr. Greenberg goes in and flushes out the arteries to open up the oxygen and blood flow to the heart. Surgical associates I spoke about a minute ago, they are our trauma surgeons and our trauma program docs, as well as our general surgeons that do the gallbladders and the colons, but they're actually the guys too that will go in and save a life for no matter what the trauma and the injury is. Howard Head Sports Medicine, 10 locations across Eagle and Summit County. They have 65 therapists. All therapists are at least master level trained and experienced in physical therapy, dry needling, occupational therapy, total joint therapy, across the board. We're really proud of what we've developed for sports medicine. Cancer care close to home. So at Shaw, I'm really proud to say, especially about Jack's Place, what really is a huge draw for our cancer program that we have is not just the survival rates or the cure rates, but it's that we offer this really nice place to stay for patients who are receiving radiation therapy, chemotherapy, who come to us from as far away as Green Vista, Steamboat Springs. Some folks have come from Denver even to have the therapy here. We have many visitors who come, maybe clients of yours, who have needed cancer treatments and they have second homes here and they set up a protocol. We have a lot of protocols for folks who come from MD Anderson care that come here and then receive the ongoing chemotherapy and radiation treatment here at our place. But Jack's Place, which many of you donated to, it was back in 2007 when it opened. We have 12,250 room nights, those of you who tell us. So we don't charge a penny for folks to stay there. If folks want to make a donation of $5 a night or $10 a night, fine, but we don't ask them for that. We allow people to stay free, which is pretty neat. Patricia Hardenberg, Dr. Hardenberg, and Dr. Urquhart have been here more than 10 years in medical oncology and radiation oncology, and very well trained, very good background. So we offer a lot of 3D, a lot of services. So 3D mammography screening. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands on who's had a mammo this year, but it's always a good thing from a prevention standpoint. You know, guys get breast cancer too. So check yourselves. Feel for those nodules and those things that happen to all of us from time to time. Orthopedics and research. The Stedman Research, Philippon Research Institute is really working on many things around stem cells at this point in time in terms of anti-aging, in terms of joint rehabilitation or staving off when you might need that joint replacement by using your own stem cells. Dr. John Hubert is the internationally known scientist who does science, basic science, works between the University of Texas in Houston and the Stedman Philippon Research Institute in terms of working on what stem cells can do for all of us and what that looks like. So very good with that, along with all of the other research on cutting edge and how do you reduce the the amount of time you need for rehab by reducing the size of the incision and how much muscle you cut through when you do like a total hip replacement. Very good. Vail Orthopedics, they also have an orthopedic foundation, not to the extent of research as the Stedman Philippon Institute, but they're involved with monitoring snowboard injuries as one of the platforms that they do research around and how to prevent snowboard injuries along with the design of a snowboard. So very interesting. We're very proud of what we do with orthopedics. Total joint replacement. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but my hand we got. I had a total knee well over a year ago. You did too. How was your experience? Great. Good. So Dr. Cafferty, Nick Cafferty, is with Vail Orthopedics, and then Dr. Kim mostly does total knees, but he also does some total hips, and he's with Vail, with Stedman Philippon. And then Dr. Joe Maddox, he combines his work mostly to the hip replacement. And he, over his career, through research, developed the anterior entry into doing a total hip, so in the front of the hip versus on the side or more posterior. And it really takes a lot of time off of recovery because you're not cutting all the muscles as you go through and you go straight in. Pretty phenomenal that we have him on our team. And Nate and Ray are both excellent surgeons. They're both very, very good. They have really good outcomes. And we're doing a large number of total replacements. I think this week in Vail, we will have done 23. I think 2 years ago, we weren't doing 8. So people are coming from out of state, out of region, to see all three of these gentlemen. And Dr. Ernie Braxton, any of you know him? He's the best guy in the whole wide world. He's so friendly to talk to and has great ideas about everything. But he joined Vail Summit Orthopedics in the summer of 2017, I think. Yeah. And he is a neurosurgeon as well as a spine surgeon. But he focuses on his spine surgery as being minimally invasive. Minimally invasive. So he just makes a small incision in your spine and back to do the work that he does. Sometimes he goes through the abdomen just to reduce the amount of post-op recovery time. He comes with an incredible background. A really nice guy and great addition to our community. So this is the big topic. Whether you're reading the Denver Post, or whether you're reading Time Magazine, or whether you're reading U.S. News, or whether you're sitting around having coffee at Starbucks or in your office, the cost of healthcare seems to be a huge focus. And some of our national elections have been focused around what the cost of healthcare is. So it's no lie that 20% of the GDP is spent on healthcare in America. That's a lot of dollars that get spent. And 32% of U.S. healthcare spending is in hospitals. So no wonder the goal for prevention and to do as many outpatient, do your care as much of outpatient as you can, because hospitals are expensive. But I will tell you that our hospital has had price increases of 2.35% annually each year over the last 7 years, while the average price increase in Colorado hospitals is 11%. And that's what gets us all in trouble in the news. And we're adding an addition. So, goodness sakes, we must be gouging our patients with higher charges to pay for our addition that we're doing on the East Wing. It's $159 million. But I'll tell you that through philanthropy, we have raised over $100 million toward the project. Dan Pennington through the Vail Health Foundation, and all of you who have supported the hospital capital campaign, thank you, has helped with that. We did a bond issue for I've drawn a blank on it. Michael, how much was that?
100.
100.
Wasn't it? I'm not a banker.
I'm not a banker. I'm trying to remember here. I think 100 million as well. That we did that for too. And of course, that's payable back, but we're very, very low interest rate. We did that really just to be sure that we have enough money saved in our foundation and investment accounts over years. But in 2008, when I came back to the hospital, we had 19 days cash on hand. Didn't know it. I might have said I don't really want to come back to the hospital after having been here in the 80s and 90s. But over the last 10 years, we have had an incredible board and an incredible team of executive leaders and management who have looked at creating efficiencies and looking at ways how we can build dollars without raising prices at a high rate. And so we now have a vast amount of dollars that we've put away specifically to save over the last 10 years. Haven't gouged anybody on prices. We're very cost conscious on what we look at for prices. But the Affordable Care Act on the exchange, which Colorado participates in the exchange, the individual premium prices have gone up astronomically each year. So 26, 28, 30%. We, as our hospital, we don't understand that because we know for certain that the insurance companies are making money. They're publicly traded. They have to pay their shareholders and stockholders. Hospital prices haven't gone up. So it's unfortunate that our Region 9 gets tagged in the state of Colorado as being the most expensive region, when, interestingly enough, it's the insurance companies who have actually raised the premiums higher. And one thing that I'm very unhappy about is on the exchange, Anthem Blue Cross has a product called Mountain Enhanced that they offer individual plans for across the state, but here in our area for sure. And we have given significant discounts to Anthem, but they haven't passed those discounts along to you. And we have another big meeting with them coming up on the 28th. And to say, what are you doing? What are you doing with this? We're giving you discounts, but you're not passing them along in premiums of your health plan products that you're putting out here in Eagle County. So a lot more to talk about on all of this. I know that one of the discussions that was in the Denver Post, it was a very interesting day. When you have an investigative reporter knock on your door and say they want to come in and talk about healthcare prices. So Michael was very good and helped Carol, our CFO, and I put together our talking points that we could talk about. And I'll tell you the end of the story first. So when the reporter was leaving our offices, after all of his questions and tape recording this, he shook his head and said, I don't know why I have anything to do with healthcare. I don't understand it. So, fast forward then to the article in the Denver Post. It's like, yeah, you really didn't get it. You misquoted all of this from what you said. But we're not going to be defensive. Let's put the word out about what we really do and what the prices really are. So Colorado Hospital Association monitors all of the inpatient prices and charges across all hospitals in Colorado. Inpatient, not outpatient. And when you look at, for example, total knee replacement, you look at Vail Health, our total knee replacement cost that are charged, that is reported through CHA, is somewhere between $27,000 and $42,000, depending on surgeon and the implant that you have. So you look at Summit Medical Center across the pass, and their charge for the same total knee replacement with the same implant, $74,000. And then you look at Denver and just pick one hospital out of thin air, Presbyterian St. Luke's, and you see that their charge is $147,000 for the same procedure. How do you do that? Well, that has to do with insurance companies go to hospitals and say, we'll give you a discount if you'll do a contract with us. So contracts vary across the state of all hospitals. So you have this mismatch of what charges and how things happen. But how you build a charge is the cost of the actual implant that goes into your knee, shoulder, hip, and what you pay for that with the vendor or the supplier. The pharmaceuticals, especially with cancer treatment, are very expensive. What kind of contracts or relationships can you have with the makers of all these things, the pharmaceuticals? And it's very important for hospitals to have great programs that allow those discounts or lower prices to happen. And we pride ourselves on being able to do that and have done that over the years. So we can keep our charges low. We can keep them lower. Why other hospitals aren't doing that, I have no idea. But good luck to them in the future, because the government care plan, which is very, it's very interesting with being able to look forward. I wish I had a crystal ball to see what our new governor is going to do with health plans. In Congress, he's been a proponent of a single payer plan. So if that comes to the state, woe be to all of us if we're forced to go into that kind of a plan. You won't be able to necessarily pick the kind of implant that might go into your knee because it might be too expensive for the single payer plan. You might have to go with the vanilla brand. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. It's just choices are going to be taken away. It's going to be one size fits all. And clearly, even today, Medicare is doing some things around rationing care. So if I'm old and I'm not getting around too well and I have high blood pressure and heart problems, they may not approve me. Medicare may not approve me to get my knee fixed, even though that would help me get more exercise and maybe not have high blood pressure and have heart problems. So we have to be very careful when we start hearing about single player plans. Ask lots of questions. That's the important piece. And you know, Colorado defeated the ballot initiative 2 years ago to not have opt-in to a single payer plan. So we have to be very careful with what we're looking at and have a voice in what's happening. I know that you have Vail Board of Realtors now has an opportunity for a health plan through Aetna called Stratego. Thank you. So how many of you are signing up for that? Well, Michael and his team have asked Aetna for access, for the hospital to have access to Stratego, so that we can build in discounts. We can work with Aetna on that. We haven't been contacted by them. We now have their contact information as of yesterday, and so we'll be contacting them to say, hey, what do you want when your members comes to the hospital? You know, what do your prices look like? Because we may be able to work together on some things by reducing some. So hopefully we're going to be able to work through that. Questions or comments on that? I can't really speak to the plan,
but Aetna has been here before. Did they pull out of our Colorado markets?
No,
they're out of the exchange.
Okay.
No, they're not on the exchange.
Okay.
We have a contract with Aetna, but we want to be sure that this particular health plan is included in that contract, or can we do better than that? Because our goal at the hospital is to do as much for the locals as we can across the board. And I think it's a change because I think last year we talked about Kaiser. The hospital does have a contract with Kaiser for emergency visits, only discounts and those things, but not a full-fledged hospital contract, because Colorado Mountain Medical is the only physician group in the valley that actually has a contract with Kaiser at this point in time. So then moving on a little bit about Vail Health is not tax funded. So Aspen Hospital receives tax funds from the county annually, as does Rifle. And about 80% of the hospitals, community hospitals, are nonprofit. So we provide charity care. We have charity care process. Again, Medicaid, Medicare providers. And then we give back to the community and we subsidize healthcare services. So why do nonprofit hospitals make a profit, and is that okay? And that's the subject of some of the things that you see on the internet and on some of the blogs. I don't do Facebook and I don't do blogs, but Michael makes me read some of them sometimes just to cry or get mad. We have to have, it's not really a profit, but you could call it that, drive revenues. Why do we want to beat our budget every year? So that we have dollars to put back into equipment that we have to replace from a depreciation standpoint, and be able to maintain our staff. So we pay market competitive wages. We don't overpay, but we sure can't underpay because it's just faulty. Housing is expensive here, groceries are expensive here. It can dissuade good people from coming here to work at the hospital if they think they have to spend most of their dollars on housing, for example, or gasoline prices being higher here. So we have to have dollars to be able to stay competitive with our wages. We have to build a plan for the future and a master plan and to remain independent. Hospitals want to talk to us because we do well here, and so they want a piece of that. The hospitals and them are fighting and struggling with each other from a competitive standpoint for patients, so they want a piece of us. They want Aspen. You see how it has steamrolled now. But all of us want to stay. All of us who are independent Valley, we all want to stay independent to the extent that we all can. We have partnerships. So a patient we can't take care of here, we have partnerships with Swedish for stroke care, and with we can't do a cardiac care here that we need is Medical Center of Aurora. Some of our babies who can't stay here very Presbyterian St. Luke's. Our major trauma goes to Denver Health, but the patients come back to us. They don't stay in those systems. So there's rationale for why a little profit has to be made. We had a $20 million give back in 2017. I won't go through the entire list. I'm very proud to say that we partnered with Starting Hearts, and some of you are part of that, for 78 new AEDs in the community. I think the Starting Hearts folks had a wonderful event this summer where they did a scavenger hunt, where they had folks go out and find the AEDs. It's one thing to say we have them all over our community, but it's another thing to say, hey, Doris, do you know where yours one is if somebody goes down around you? So we should all be educated and oriented to that. We give 1,000 bike helmets and ski helmets through our Think First program, which is part of the hospital. We go out and measure the kids. This little guy got one of them, so happy. So you'll see us around. Our team goes out to work on those. We have one thing that's really exciting is through Colorado College, the surgical tech program. So 10 years ago, we had an idea. If we could just take local kids coming out of high school or in their senior year of high school and put them into training programs at Colorado College. So these are kids who live here, they know the cost of living here, they want to stay here and have families. How do we educate them to give them a good paid job at the hospital? So the surgical tech program. So surgical tech is the person who scrubs into surgery and hands instruments to surgeons during surgery. So we went to Colorado Mountain College and said, can you help us develop this program? We know it will be successful. Well, we graduated 5 students in the last year, and 4 of those have come to the hospital to work, so it's working. Surgical techs are very hard to find, and most of them wrap through all the hospitals and get them because of a 25-cent an hour pay difference. So we're able to train the folks here. Their lab is set up through the surgery center here in the hospital, and off hours, obviously, where they're being trained. But it's a real successful program, so we're able to keep kids here. One thing we say for criteria is they have to be kind of compulsive. The dishes in the sink, they make the beds, they brush their teeth without being told. Because to work in surgery, you have to be pretty exact on what you're doing when you're handing the instrument to a doctor. So they go through a screening process, but every one of them that graduated has been placed in the mountains in the community, so it's exciting. So our charity care policy is it's available to anyone earning up to 350% of the federal poverty level. That's a good number because most hospitals stay at the 250, 280, 300%, but we raised ours to 350. So a household of 4 earning $90,000 a year can apply for financial assistance through the hospital. And many people, when I talk to the public in general, people will come up to me afterwards and say, I couldn't have done this without having the financial assistance that we were able to get from the hospital. One thing we did a few years ago, I think it was Michael's idea, that we give a discount to Eagle County uninsured patients in our urgent cares. So it's a 75% discount for an uninsured person to come to 1 or 2 urgent cares that we have. And we have a volume, pretty significant volume of people who come, but they need it. But again, it's for minor illnesses. We don't want someone who has a sore throat to end up in the ER unless they have high fever and things associated with it. But let's take care of illness and injury at the lowest denominator that we can. That's the least expensive to the healthcare organizations. So we have a lot of folks who are taking advantage of that, and we're really happy about it. And we have no interest payment plans that we have for folks too. So this is a sobering piece, and it's the last part of what we're going to talk about. But we have a mental health and behavioral crisis in our community. It's not funny. It's crazy. When you look at these are just our emergency statistics that we have. So when you look at alcohol and anxiety, depression, visits to our emergency department. So over the years, look how that each year over year since 2014. Look how that's climbing. We have significant issues in this community around alcohol and anxiety and depression. Even bigger than that is our suicide and homicidal patients that come to our ER for care. Those numbers are going up. They're higher today. The whole goal is to keep that suicidal patient or homicidal patient in the home versus coming to a hospital. That's the move across the country. And that's not a bad move if you get the right people who are working with those folks in their homes. Our children's mental health, so the Healthy Kids of Colorado survey that was done of 7th and 8th graders, this is staggering. In 2017, 16% of our 7th and 8th graders say they have suicide plans. Is that frightening or what? What's happening? That's why some of the 1A dollars, the marijuana tax dollars on recreational marijuana, the county just applied a couple months ago $400,000 to the schools, private Eagle County public schools across the county to put school-based counselors in so they can either the kids are saying they have anxiety or they're thinking about killing themselves, we have that opportunity now. Those are not enough dollars by any means, but it's staggering me to think that we have this in our community. It's sad. So I talked about the marijuana tax dollars. They're not enough. I don't know what this means. If somebody has a safe below their facility or what, but when you pay cash for things, sometimes things don't get taxed. Anyway, the dollars aren't coming in to the extent that we thought they would, but that's going to grow over years, over 2 years. So I think in year 4, the county expects $1.2 million to come in. We're not near that number now. We're closer to 600,000, but it's all being used. It's not sitting in county coffers. I can assure you of that. There's advisory committees and folks who are making decisions or recommendations to the county commissioners. But what we've developed, and the hospital's taken the lead in this, we've developed a systems approach to what we need for behavioral health in the community. So between the hospital and the county, law enforcement, Mind Springs Mental Health, we've tapped into some folks at UC Depression Center for their advice and expertise, working with Eagle County paramedics and the paramedic service, sitting at a table on a regular basis, monthly at a minimum, to talk about what is the need, and then to look at where the gaps are. We've just gone through an exercise with a consultant. Where are the gaps? What's falling through in our community? And how do we build a sustainable system? So from a fundraising standpoint, it's estimated that to have a sustainable system to cover all the needs in this community over the next 5-7 years, it's about $50 million, 50. That's a lot of money, but when you look at the numbers of patients who are coming into the hospital with mental health and behavioral health issues, and where are they going? What's the follow-up? We don't have a detox in our community. We don't social detox. We don't have a crisis stabilization unit. So what that would be is a unit of probably 8 beds that a patient can stay in for up to 72 hours, adolescent or adult, and have psychiatric care to where they can stay in the community versus being shipped to Grand Junction, where they go today, which is fine, they get good care there, or to Denver, they get good care there as well. But we need that in the community, so the hospital's taking the lead and putting this plan together for this facility. Or if I'm just feeling bad, or I'm feeling high anxiety, and I want to go in and talk to somebody, it's a walk-in basis too, and have immediate attention from psychiatric trained doctors and nursing staff. So we're working to build that. Jail-based counselors. We have folks in jail who will, for whatever reason, they're embarrassed or they try to commit suicide. And so how do we help them? Where are the jail-based counselors? We have one in our community now. So we need to build an entire system around this. So we're working on that. I know that that's here. I know that's subject matter of discussion at cocktail parties and different things. Gosh, it's crazy that we don't have something to take care of folks. We've had 5 suicides since September 20th in this community. 5 adult suicides. I think we've had 14. We had 14, and then all of 2018 up until now, we had 5 to this. We've had more than our share in Eagle County. And the holiday time seems to be a high anxiety, folks, that produces more folks around attempted suicide and suicide. We have to get help for people. We have to educate. We have to do prevention. So we're here for you. We work hard and strive to serve you and to meet the needs that you have. I will be staying on for 2 years as part of the plan, so I will stay with behavioral health and how we build that in this community, and I will also be working on some regional development that we're looking at. You've probably seen along with the STEM Clinic and the Vail Summit Orthopedics, we're building an outpatient surgery center in Dillon. Both orthopedic groups were basically told in April that they could no longer take ER call at Summit Medical Center, that Summit Medical Center Centura was bringing up Pan-Lam of their own orthopedic group. Well, it didn't go over well with the doctors. Vail Summit Orthopedics has been in the Summit County area for 30+ years and have worked and practiced in Summit County and used Summit County Medical Center, which is great, but they've come to the hospital and they said, what can you do to help us? Our patients still want to come to us. Can we do something together in a joint venture of sort in terms of building the building and providing outpatient surgical care, urgent care, physical therapy. So we're working on that. I will stay with that as part of my projects going forward, and then completing the East Wing on budget and on time. So I'm very happy to do that. I love this community. I love healthcare in this community, and I believe in all of this. So what questions might you have? Yes, ma'am.
What about the opioid crisis that's going on throughout everywhere with our state, and what is available for locals?
It's significant. You're right, in the state. So we have a group of surgeons and doctors and nursing staff who participate on the state level with Colorado Hospital Association on what we can do in our own communities. So we have different programs that we have. So when you go to have a total knee replacement, when you leave, somebody may say to you, well, you need a prescription for like 4 different opioids. And the patient thinks, okay, I must be going to have a lot of pain, I'm going to take these. Well, what we're doing is stopping that. We're saying, screen the patient ahead of time, understand what works best for them for pain post-operatively, and give them that prescription, but just give them 10 days. Don't give them 30 or 60 days worth. So we're doing a lot around educating doctors and patients. If they need more pain medicine, they can always call the doctor and they can get another 3-day or 5-day script. So you don't need 4 different prescriptions on your shelf with 60-day supply of oral morphine, Tylenol #3, or I don't remember what all of them are. I know when I had my total knee, I laughed. I said, Oxycontin. I said, just give me Tylenol #3. I don't want to take any of this stuff home. I don't want it. So day 3 post-op, I was probably saying, I really wish I had something more, but then I was so sick, I said, I'm not taking any more of this. Give me Tylenol #3. So, yeah.
Are the doctors integrating their computers so that patients can go to different doctors?
Yes, that's a statewide mandate that not only with the doctors, but it's really the pharmacies, because doctors don't dispense the medicine. It's really the pharmacies that have a computer program with patients' names. So if they fill a prescription for you and they've given you 30 Oxycontin, if you go to, that's at City Market in Avon, if you go to the hospital pharmacy in Vail and your name goes in and you're there to get more Oxycontin, it'll pop up that you already have some. And to ask you, I think there's 3 questions that you can ask so that it doesn't happen and then you can refuse to fill it and then the pharmacy calls the doctor.
And that's statewide, so they can't go to Denver.
Yeah, it's supposed to be working. I can't tell you how well it is working, but I can tell you our hospital pharmacies are very much in Edwards and Vail in part of the program. But you're right, it is a huge concern.
And are there any places for kids to go, or who are 18, or who family have kids?
Today, no, not in Union County. That's why this crisis stabilization unit would be so helpful, because it will not only be for adults, but it'll be for adults and adolescents, but then a whole family-centered program around it for education and prevention. And there's so much that's been done around the iPhones and the kids with technology and focused on this and games, and they're not really engaging in them with other outside things, going for a hike, heaven forbid, ice skating and skiing. But, it's really hard to, the bullying that happens through text messaging is just awful with kids. And it sends them into state, they're not able to cope. They're not adults, not that adults can cope with being bullied in the text message, but think of children who do that. Or, what are you, stupid? Because, where did one text one day? From a kid locally to another kid, what are you, stupid? Because you broke your arm again? Just because you're mental, which means he had a learning disorder. Why did you break your arm again? And this kid went nuts. I mean, it's so hurtful. We have to stop that. And education is the best thing that we can do across the community. And Michael and team, we're working with, what's the groups we're working with?
Eagle River Youth Coalition.
Eagle River Youth Coalition. And you want to talk a little bit about what you've done?
Sure, we've been, I think it's really the new reality for all our communities, that how we equip our parents, how we equip our kids, how we equip our whole communities with managing mental health, with managing technology. A lot of the studies coming out right now are showing that the spikes that we're seeing that Doris showed in our students correlate exactly with the rollout of smartphones in 2007, and then really the adoption when it hit over 50% of people was about 2010-11, and then we start seeing all these increases. And so studies tying that back really directly to uses of social media, online news, things like that. So we're trying to do more and more work in the community on this. Had a talk with Eat Chat Parent is the series that Eagle River Youth Coalition puts on. So we've just come alongside them and are helping them. We brought in a speaker, Dr. Lisa Strohan, a couple months ago. And we had she was really good. We had about 560 parents and kids attend over 2 days her sessions to talk about the dangers of technology for our kids. That's the most we've ever had attend any health talk in our community ever. So I think we're shocked and blown away. We're encouraged by the interest. There's an incredible amount of momentum behind this, but a lot of work that needs to be done in all areas. But that's specifically for our kids and our parents. But what Doris was talking about, the whole system is there's a lot more beyond our kids and our parents, and it's a huge undertaking. And the needle has moved in the wrong direction really, really, really fast. It's really scary. And so there's so much that needs to be done. And the model that Doris is speaking about is our goal is how do we design truly the best mental health, behavioral health system in a community in the country. If anybody has an opportunity to do it, we think we have the opportunity here to do it. It's going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of work by a lot of people. Those people are all collaborating and working together right now. But we're kind of starting at zero. There's a lot of work to be done, and so we're fortunate that she'll be on for the next couple of years to help lead that, because you honestly need people working on it full time for us to get anywhere, because the damage being done is moving faster than how we can react. And opioids are just another part of it, right? I mean, what a mess. And so that's just a part of the whole picture of mental health and behavioral health in our country.
Any other questions? Feedback?
Just a question if you want to think about the hospital, the alcohol facility that was going to go up and work there up.
You know, that's a private facility. That's not open to public individuals. It's private pay. I don't know a lot about it. I've met with a couple of the folks who are setting up and running it. If anybody knows, please share that information.
So is it open? It's not open.
I don't know. The question with the Cordillera facility for rehab.
It's on the market.
Nothing's happened. Does anybody have a market?
It's on the market to sell.
That's what
It's on the market to sell it. And that's unfortunate, but we really didn't know a lot about it. They come to the hospital and asked if we would help financially with it. And we said, well, you open it to all of the community, and the answer is no. And I said, I don't think so. But, we'll help take care of the medical issues if patients or clients come in and need medical care. So we didn't hear back from them.
it would just be
Doris, the data points that you have on the trends and whatnot are really eye-opening. And I guess one of the questions that comes to my mind, it's all, as you say, it's a multifaceted scenario. And knowing our populace and whatnot, multifaceted things aren't things that you deal with real well. So is the thought process trying to utilize the old acronym of the KISS principle of process to narrow it down to relatively actionable points so that we can get some action? Because when you try to talk to someone, whether it's a young parent or whatever, and you give them the macro view, they don't relate that to themselves. And if you can tell them this particular issue is a problem, I find that they're much more relatable and ready to act. If it's that big amorphous picture up there.
And that's a good point, and that's what our systems group is trying to do. We're trying to understand the gaps. What are the initial and necessary communications that can happen in school, that can happen with parents at home? A lot of kids are, the parents living in this valley, they're working, and so a lot of kids are home alone or with their PAPA kids in the summertime, and there's some pretty not good behaviors going on among a lot of the kids and their parents. Not all parents, but some parents tend to ignore that. And so I think it's getting that education out and making that available to person. And to take the stigma away that behavioral health issues are not bad things. You're not crazy. You're not nuts. You have a medical need or you have a mental health need. that needs to be addressed, and it's okay to open up and talk about it. It's okay to ask somebody for help, and then get to that provider for that person that you know best. Good. Yes, ma'am.
I applaud your efforts in not overprescribing opioids. As a veteran of too many surgeries to count, I've given away so many of those to Take Back Drug Day. The trash can's full. So, yeah,
It's tough.
good job on that one.
Thank you all. It's a long job.
Yeah.
Anything else? I know I'm getting my time with it here. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and for giving me some of your time today. I'm Holly Locke. I'm the Executive Director from Eagle River Watershed Council. And I really just want to introduce you to the Watershed Council today, or for some of you, review what we do. I will kind of focus on our history a little bit in the beginning, more than I usually do, just we have the time. And I think that tells you a lot about why we do what we do now. And then I'll let you know about our current projects that we're doing and some recent accomplishments. And then I'm going to end with 10 to 15 minutes on the Community Water Plan, which is a multi-year project that we're working on that is really seeking community input. So I want to make sure that you all know about that. All right, so the Watershed Council focuses on keeping the rivers and streams of Eagle County healthy. We do that through a robust water quality monitoring program that we then use to guide all of our restoration projects and our education programs. And I'll talk more about all those in a minute. So we work on the Upper Colorado River, which is not on this map here. And we have 55 miles of the Colorado River that flows through Eagle County. So we keep an eye on that and all of its tributaries that land within Eagle County. So that's Piney, Red Dirt, Sweetwater, Deep Creek, and many more that I'm sure that you all have spent time on. Then we also keep an eye on the entire Eagle River watershed. So that includes the entire length of the Eagle River from Tennessee Pass down to Dot Cerro. It's about 70 miles long. And then all of the rivers and streams that flow into the Eagle River. So Gore Creek, Homestake, Gypsum Creek, Brush Creek, Beaver Creek, all of them. We are looking on both the Upper Colorado and the Eagle for impacts from various things. We're trying to stay in front of impacts and restoring them where we pick them up. So that could be from recreation, from agriculture, and our development as well. So roads, roofs, bike paths that are introducing pollution to our streets. And that also includes mining. And mining is really at the base of our founding. So the Eagle Mine, this is on the left is a picture of the Eagle Mine, and then the the trestle that carries all of the mine waste to a treatment facility. So the Eagle Mine is just downstream from Red Cliff, for those of you that don't know about it. And then Gilman, that ghost town that sits up on the hill, the mine is directly below it, and that's where all of the miners and their families lived. The Eagle Mine, as you can see, sits right on the banks of the Eagle River. And so in the 1870s, when this was founded, it started off as a gold and silver mine, and then quickly transitioned over to zinc. They operated for many years, and in 1984, and gone through a lot of different changes in ownership. In 1984, that owner at the time went bankrupt, and as in all bankruptcies, the power was shut off along with a lot of other things, and so the pumps within the mine were closed off as well. Any hole in the ground fills with water over time, from the snow melting up top and the groundwater percolating up. So within 2 years of the mine closing, it overflowed and flowed right into the Eagle River that you see there. And that was not just plain old water, that was heavy metal laden water. It was bright orange, a lot like what you saw with the Animus from the Gold King mine a couple of years ago, except this was much worse. So it flowed bright orange, and it was chronic. It would happen on and off periodically for many years. And the problem with that was not only the way that it looked, but it was a problem for the fish. So in that, those heavy metals that were most significant were cadmium, copper, and zinc. If you look at a multivitamin bottle, you'll see all of those ingredients in there, so it's not really a threat to human health, but it is a problem for fish. The zinc in particular clogs their gills and they can't breathe. It doesn't typically cause a fish kill, like you hear about on the news. Instead, the fish just leave the area. So really from the Eagle Mine down to Arrowhead and sometimes even further down, the fish population was really minimal until the cleanup efforts progressed, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But in addition to it being a problem for the fish, it's a problem for our economy and our recreation and tourism. People really don't want to come to a community with an orange stream. So a number of business owners came together and started working on a plan for remedying this and working with Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and the EPA to find a remedy and fix this permanently. And then around the same time, Eagle County was putting together an Eagle River Watershed Plan. That watershed plan, which came out in 1986, called for the formation of a nonprofit organization that would oversee the implementation and monitoring of that watershed plan. So those two things together, the watershed plan and the Eagle Mine cleanup, really were the impetus for the founding of the Watershed Council. We continue to work on the mine. It will be an ongoing issue forever. As I said, it's just going to keep filling up with water. So that trestle that you see there in the right-hand picture carries all the mine waste from the mine. That was the original trestle, so there is historic value there from the mine. We've repurposed it, lined it with PVC piping, and carry all the mine waste out of it down to a treatment facility in Malloy Park. That is specific to the mine. It is not for drinking water. They pull out all of the heavy metals and clean it up, and then that water is returned clean to the river. So we make sure that the trestle is being monitored for leaks. It's easy to leak when you have water running through a pipe that's above ground. We also are working with the EPA and CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, to come up with a better plan, maybe a treatment facility closer to the mine at some point. Did you have a question?
Is this mine still operable?
No, it's not operating, but it will just keep filling up with water over time. And so we continue to monitor downstream on a monthly basis in 3 different locations to make sure that we're not seeing any increases in the metal counts. And we also have an annual meeting with local stakeholders to make sure that we're keeping tabs on the progress of the cleanup. Yeah.
Who owns it now?
CBS, the TV company. And there's a crazy story as to why they own it.
Do they contribute to your efforts?
They spend a lot of money on the cleanup annually. So I mean, they have consultants that have to be on the grounds at all times. They have surveillance systems set up, and they have to run the treatment facility. So it's an expensive effort.
And there's no way to close down the mine so that...
No, it just keeps filling with water. They did come up with a solution a few years ago that reduced the amount of water going into it. They dug a well nearby that pulls clean water out before it ever hits the mine, and then they return that to the creek. So that helps a little bit to reduce the amount of water going in, but it'll be an ongoing issue forever. Another issue we've been working on since our founding was Blackboard Creek and Vail Pass. As you all know, when it snows and there's ice, CDOT puts down highway traction sand so we can all get around, which is a good thing. But when the snow melts, all of that sand goes with that melting snow and runs right off into the nearest stream. So on Vail Pass, that's Blackboard Creek. And at one point, Blackboard Creek really looked like it had beaches running up and down it. So we, the Watershed Council, worked with the town of Vail and CDOT and Eagle County, Eagle River Water and Sanitation District, and the Forest Service to come up with some solutions here. So when you're driving up and down Vail Pass, you'll see some ponds off to the side in numerous locations. Those are sediment bases. The whole intent with those is to capture that sediment. Sediment falls out, the water keeps moving clean onto the creek.
And then we can go in, or contractors can go in and clean out that sediment on an annual basis. But the basin of last resort, which is this one here, as the name implies, it's the very last one on Vail Pass and our last opportunity to capture all that sediment. It hasn't been cleaned out in a very long time until this year because the access road was set up in such a way that it triggered permitting. And that permitting process takes 1 to 2 years to go through and is very expensive. So last year, with the help of CDOT and all of our partners working together, we came up with a plan to put in an access road that wouldn't trigger that permitting. So they can go in every single year now and get it cleaned up. If you've gone up Vail Pass in the last month, you've seen all the excavating equipment out there. They're digging up that sand and hauling it off. And then the basin will be able to hold more sand once we get into its job. So we were very excited. It was reason for celebration to have this access road put in. And I forgot to mention as well, we continue to have annual meetings on that with all the stakeholders and make sure that the amount of sand being put down in the winter is also getting picked up in the spring, and CDOT's doing a great job with that. So we continue to have those meetings and we monitor for water quality as well.
How about the mag chloride? How's that?
That's part of the conversation every year in these meetings because we want to make sure that we're balancing mag chloride use and traction sand because there was a point there when we had pushed back so hard on the traction sand that they started going to mag chloride more. And so now we want to make sure that there's a balance because at least with the traction sand you can pick it up.
Right.
So there's a balance and we're working on that, and we're also looking into different studies that are being done on mag chloride, and there's not a lot of research right now.
Except with banned Aspen.
It is banned in Aspen.
Banned here on the track.
Right, but an important note on that, with Gore Creek, there's impacts to water quality on Gore Creek that Vail is dealing with, and I'm sure you've seen the restored Gore stickers and such, and that's all water quality. So Vail and Aspen both have that same situation with a drop in water quality as soon as their streams hit town. But Aspen doesn't have the mag chloride and Vail does. So it's not the mag chloride that's causing those impacts. So we can rule that out. I'm sure it's not helping, but it's not the primary cause. Okay, so Deep Creek. This is an effort that we've been working on with American Rivers for a couple of years now, and that's to get it designated as a wild and scenic river. If you're not familiar with Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, it's really different than the Wilderness Act. This will not impact property rights, it won't impact water rights or grazing rights. All it does is protect the free-flowing nature of the stream and protects the values of the stream. So the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act refers to those as outstandingly remarkable values, or ORVs. On this stream, and it's different for every stream what those ORVs are. For this stream, it's really the scenic values and ecological. We have really rare plant species and bat species that live there. We also have a huge network of limestone caves. It's the largest network in the state, and we have the longest cave up there. It's been measured at 11 miles, and they still haven't found the end of it yet. So it's really impressive, something we want to protect. And because of all that limestone, it's attractive to mining operations. So that's part of the reason for us getting designated as wild and scenic. And we're working with stakeholders on this. There are cattle and sheep grazers using the canyon or the top of the canyon, and so we've worked with them. HATS also uses it for helicopter training. The canyon echoes Afghanistan's conditions quite a bit, and so it's a great training ground for them. So we don't want them to lose that opportunity, so we're working closely with all of those partners to make sure that this makes sense. Our plan will not create a visitor center, it won't improve hiking trails or anything like that. It's just protecting the stream. Because we don't really want to see a huge increase in tourism up there either. Because that could have its own impacts. And something interesting to note, in doing all of this work on Deep Creek, we've talked to a number of people and asked around, and there's only a couple handfuls of people that have ever walked the entire length of Deep Creek. It's just pristine and rugged and really hard to access. Don't take that as a challenge. But there's bouldering required and climbing and rappelling. For those of you that don't know where Deep Creek is, it's off of the Colorado River. So if you go up the Colorado River Road from Dotsero, I believe it's 14 miles, maybe not even that far up, it's Coffee Pot Road. So and Deep Lake is up at the top. A lot of people like to camp up there. There's a great campground and really good fishing up the top there. Yeah, well, it's not that it's so rough, it's that it's really long. It takes a very long time. Was it rough? Was it rough? But it's beautiful. I mean, the views from up top are amazing. So our restoration projects, we continue to do projects every single summer and fall, usually using volunteers. We do this on public lands and private lands. And typically these are set with the goal of improving cutthroat trout habitat, revegetating our riparian areas, and also dealing with stormwater runoff. And almost always they're with collaborative efforts with other entities, either federal agencies, state, or other nonprofits. So for example, this year, and in most years we do projects on open space and other public properties. This past summer, we just completed a project with Eagle Valley Land Trust and Eagle County Open Space on the Miller Ranch open space parcel. Since that opened just a few years ago, it's gotten a ton of use, and there were social trails everywhere, people just trying to beat their way through the willows to get down to the Eagle River. That was introducing a lot of sediment to the stream, and we wanted to deal with that and also show people the right way to go, because a lot of those trails were dead-ending into the mud and the bogs, and people weren't really enjoying the experience when they ended up on one of those trails. So we closed those trails, and we also worked with the community to make sure that the trails that we were delineating that we want people to use are the ones that make the most sense, especially the fishing community. There's a lot of fishing guides that use this area. So we closed off the trails that we didn't want to have there and revegetated those with native plants. And we used about 30 volunteers to get that work done, and they got it done in a day, and it looks really nice now. Then this year we worked on Gore Creek, and then we have another project on Gore Creek next year. This summer it was with a homeowners association in East Vail, Cedar Point. This was a really cool project because there's 9 homeowners there, so it was really hard to get 9 homeowners to agree on a design and the implementation of this project. But they were having a lot of erosion problems. They were getting some bank loss, so they were losing their property to the stream, and there's concerns with the water quality in Gore Creek already. So we worked with them to come up with some plants that they could all agree on. We varied the plan based upon the homeowners' likes and dislikes. So the neighbor's vegetation might be a little different than the guy next door, and it all worked out in the end. And then next year we are doing the same thing, but with a different homeowners association in East Vail, a much bigger one. I think there's 25 homeowners in that one, so that might be a little more of a challenge, but we're up for it. And then the U.S. Forest Service. We work with the Forest Service through National Forest Foundation funding every single year. This year it was up on Shrine Pass on Turkey Creek. There was an area, there's actually a number of jeep roads there that have been closed by the Forest Service because they're contributing sediment as well and water quality concerns, people driving right through the middle of the creek. So those were closed off, but they weren't decommissioned properly, so people were bypassing the gate and just driving it anyway. So we closed those off with a bigger gate, ripped up the road with an excavator for several miles, and then reseeded it and put down erosion control fabric to really keep people off of there. And we're doing something very similar next year up on Piney, just downstream from Piney Lake. And that's mostly with campgrounds that people have put next to, way too close to the stream. And then we maintain all of our past projects. We either go out and irrigate the vegetation that we've put in, or we remove noxious weeds, what have you, other problems that come up with restoration projects. Now our education and outreach programs, these continue to grow. We have a lot of fun with these. Bug kicking, that refers to, it sounds horrible, but there's something called a kick net, and that's actually what hydrologists and entomologists use to study bugs in the stream. So it's a net, you just go out and you can see the handle from it here. You head out with that into the middle of the stream and you let the kids kick up the rocks, and that makes all the bugs in the stream right in that area let go, and they drift right into the net, and the kids haul the net up onto shore and they can dig through and discover all the different bugs. We have them divide all the bugs into little ice cube trays based upon the different type of bugs, so worms in one compartment and flies in another. And then they can talk, we can have a conversation with them about diversity and what diversity shows us about the health of the stream overall. Our water festival is one we're really, really excited about. This is coming up in May, and it will bring all of the 5th grade students from Eagle County to Colorado Mountain College for the day. They'll work their way through a number of stations that will be run by our partners. So we'll have the Forest Service and Walking Mountains and Water and Sanitation District. In the towns, they're running different stations on things like water filtration and water quality testing and the bugs in the stream, and probably do some on recreation as well, so we'll have a chance to cast a fly rod, and also art projects that have to do with water. And then our rain barrel workshops and our river-friendly fall landscaping workshop, we usually put those together. Rain barrels were just made legal a couple of years ago. Those are those barrels that connect off of your downspout, and then people can use that to water their garden. So we're telling people about the law and making sure that they understand how they can use those, and then also give them tips on how to build the kits.
Question relative to rain. How do you interface with the design guidelines of different communities relative to rain barrel, rain barrels?
No, it's a good question. It's not one that we've really tackled, and we typically recommend that each person in the workshop have a conversation with their HOA and review the regulations for their community. But
might be a worthwhile thing just when you're talking about the process, because most of the communities do have design guidelines on what type of barrel you can use, how it needs to be positioned, etc.
Okay.
Just lots of times people just run and say, it's a great idea, let's throw a rain barrel, and so we know we got a problem.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll be sure to point out that they need to make sure that they're following their own guidelines. That's a good point. And then the fall landscaping workshop, we cover everything from composting, xeriscaping, irrigation, and integrated pest management in those workshops. The Wild and Scenic Film Festival is really popular. It sells out every year. We hold that in April at the Riverwalk Theater. And it has 10 films. They're all adventure, conservation related, and of course have to do with water. It's a lot of fun. I encourage you to buy a ticket. The Vail Daily column comes out once a month, and then our e-newsletter is really popular. If you don't already get that and you're interested in water-related topics, I recommend signing up for it. It's free at erwc.org. And then another part of our education program is our Watershed Wednesdays. This is a free series that we hold throughout the year, and we cover a lot of different topics, and we also provide this information in a lot of different ways. So through presentations and panel discussions, film, and tours. Some of our most popular ones this past summer was a tour of the fish hatchery, and then also our bilingual community float. Timberline Tours is a great partner on that. They provided Spanish-speaking guides, native Spanish-speaking guides, and we just took the Spanish-speaking community out for a raft trip for the day. It was completely free, provided lunch, taught them about river safety and also river health, and it was just a blast, and we plan to do it every year. So. And then our water quality monitoring and assessment program. I referred to this in my opening slide, but this program is what guides everything else we do. So we collect data from 12 different entities in the valley that are already collecting water quality data. by putting all of the information together, we can assess it as one body of information, and that tells us a bigger story and also helps us to identify threats as they emerge and other trends that are emerging as well. The beauty of this program is that all of the data is available to anyone that wants it at any time. In other watersheds, there have been multiple scenarios of where a private firm holds that water quality data and it's very expensive and no one else can ever access it again. So this being up on a national database is really valuable. And then we have our cleanups. So the river cleanup is held every fall. We have about 300 to 400 people participate in that. They clean up 68 miles of streams in the valley, and they typically get 4,000 pounds of trash picked up. And then the highway cleanup is held in the spring, and that event involves about 1,000 people. They cover 140 miles of highways in the valley, and they pick up 10 tons or 20,000 pounds of trash in that one day. We've been pretty steady at that 10-ton amount, so we assume that that means that 10 tons of trash ends up on the ground every year. So we definitely don't want to miss it again.
Yeah.
And then our Land and Rivers Fund program. Hopefully you've started seeing these signs out and about. We're changing our logo, so it looks a little different right now, but that should be coming out any day. But the Land and Rivers Fund is a collaboration with the Land Trust and the Watershed Council. And all these businesses listed here are participating. So when you go into one of these businesses and you make a purchase, they will add on to your bill, typically 1%, but some do a flat dollar or they round up. And that's automatically added to your bill. You can opt out of it if you'd like. All the money that's collected goes to the Watershed Council and the Land Trust, and we split that evenly and spend it on land and river conservation programs. Also, when we reach $100,000 in annual revenue, we will be creating a grant program out of that that also will fund other entities and agencies work within Eagle County on land and river protection programs. So if you patronize one of these stores, please let them know that we appreciate the program if you do. And then, as promised, I am going to tell you now about the Community Water Plan. So the Community Water Plan has, in different communities, has different names. So you may hear these referred to as stream management plans or integrated water management plans. We wanted to keep it simple and also recognize the fact that we're involving the community in it. So that's why we went with Community Water Plan. What these do is they facilitate conversations in the community on the values of water to the community, and they help us to explore ways that we can balance agricultural, recreational, environmental, and municipal water needs. And then we use all of that information from those assessments to prioritize and identify our management actions, and those are management actions that will help us to improve or maintain stream health. And really all of the community water plans do have some common elements. They include work across disciplines, departments, and political boundaries. And they seek multiple benefits. Those are economic, social, and environmental. They engage and listen to a broad range of community members as a part of the decision-making process to ensure those equitable outcomes. And they consider and plan for changes like climate change and population growth. And they look for opportunities that are restorative, regenerative, and flexible rather than linear and rigid. So you may be wondering why we would need a community water plan. In short, this is our opportunity to shape the community's water future. And identifying the desired environmental and recreational flows for the river allows us to balance all of the uses of the streams and safeguard the interests of the community while protecting river health. This plan will focus on the entire length of the Eagle River and also consider the hydrologic influence of all of the tributaries, including those in the Upper Eagle River watershed, as any future water projects that we have coming will influence or be influenced by those streams. And the community water plan will allow us to develop proactive water management recommendations that anticipate changes to local hydrology due to factors like population growth and climate change. It will also help us evaluate water projects that come out of the Eagle River Memorandum of Understanding, or the Eagle River MOU, which is an intergovernmental agreement between Western Slope and Front Range water interests for developing municipal water supplies in the Upper Eagle River watershed. Additionally, creating a comprehensive and collaborative plan is a component of the Colorado's water plan, which was drafted in 2015 and is a roadmap for water management in the state. In order to protect and enhance stream flows, the state set a goal of having stream management plans on 80% of locally prioritized streams in the state by 2030. And you can see on this map, those in green, the dots in green are where we have plans already completed in the state, and those in orange, yellowish orange, are those that are in progress right now in green colors. So our project team is the Watershed Council as the project manager, Lotic Hydrological as our technical expert, and Peak Facilitation as our facilitator for all of our meetings. And then River Network, that you can see across the bottom there, they're a national organization that's based in Boulder, so they're helping the state meet that 80% goal that they've set, and they're really just a great resource for us when we have challenges and questions. Then also involved in the plan are all of our stakeholders. We have all of the towns involved, as well as Eagle County. Recreation is represented through our fishing and rafting guides, or guide companies. Agriculture is represented by Eagle County Conservation District. Then Northwest Colorado Council of Governments and National Forest Foundation and American Rivers are there to represent water interests and water concerns. Then state and federal agencies are also engaged. Colorado's Department of Natural Resources are involved through their water commissioners. That we have Colorado Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, and BLM at the table. And then finally, we have the Eagle River MOU partners. That is Climax Molybdenum, Vail Associates, Colorado River District, Eagle River Water and Sanitation District, Upper Eagle Regional Water Authority, and then the cities of Colorado Springs and Aurora, as they are partners in the Homestay Reservoir. So this slide really focuses on the planning process. You can see that we have engaged stakeholders as the center of this. Stakeholders have really been involved in this process since the very beginning and have helped us to create our purpose and our scope. And right now, we're moving into assessing conditions and identifying risks. And that's really going to center on a hydrologic model that's provided by Eagle River Water and Sanitation District. It's an incredibly robust tool. It cost them $400,000 to create it, and they've been developing it for the last few years. It's going to lay the framework for all of our scenario planning that we'll use to develop our management strategies. It's a really complex tool, but it will essentially allow us to forecast stream behaviors under a variety of simulated conditions, including climate change and population growth. Then we will articulate planning objectives and measurable results, which will include identifying high priority management issues and priorities and locations. And then we can move into identifying the potential alternatives and evaluating and prioritizing those based on effectiveness and feasibility. You can't talk about how we're going to do a plan like this without talking about money. So the overall cost of the plan is $390,000, and we've already received all of those funds. So we are already moving forward, as I said. And the state of Colorado provided 2/3 of the funding through 2 different funding mechanisms. One is Colorado Water Conservation Board's grants, and then the Colorado Basin Roundtable. Then the other third is made up from our stakeholders in both cash and in-kind giving, which really for stakeholders to provide 1/3, I think is a testament to the value of the plan overall and the community's buy-in for what we're working on. So the timeline here, the important thing to note on this is that as we have stakeholder meetings in between each of those, we're also having community meetings to make sure that we have that community buy-in and that we're getting the right information from the community and that their voices are being heard. So we started off in June with a stakeholder meeting where we refined the scope and really set a purpose. And immediately thereafter, we met with the subcommittee, and those committee members worked on a community engagement plan, which we will roll out in January with 3 meetings. That will be an Up Valley, a Down Valley, and a Spanish-speaking meeting. And during those meetings, we will identify what's important to the community members as we invite them to share their ideas. And then we will take that information that the community provides to us and review the community input and the conceptual models and return to the community with that information next summer. Then during the second set of community meetings, we will share the conceptual models and invite the community's perspectives on high priority management issues and locations. And I would encourage all of you to engage in those community meetings, attend them, have your voices heard, and make sure that your friends and family and neighbors are doing the same, because it really is our opportunity to shape the future of water for our valley. I won't go into too much more detail on the timeline here, but you can see that that pattern continues of having community meetings in between stakeholder meetings, and we will finalize the plan in the summer of 2020 and reveal it to the community then. Just wanted to share a list of our board and staff. I'm not sure if all of you in the room can read that, but we have some great folks working with us these days. A lot of you know a lot of our past board members as well, so be sure to reach out to any of them if you have questions or me. And then ways for you to get involved. I would encourage you to refer your clients to us if you have someone buying property on a stream and they have questions about plant species or ways to manage the landscape. We're happy to consult in those situations and really be a reference for you. Also, you can sign up for our e-newsletter, as I mentioned before, at erwc.org. You can become a business partner. Vail Board of Realtors is one of our business partners, and our partners are reflected as and recognized as a sponsor of our river cleanup and the highway cleanup, and they get other benefits as well. You can also become a River Lover member. You get, at the $50 level, you get a great hat, and you also get to sign up for our events in advance. We will have a tour of the Eagle Mine in 2019. We only offer those every other year. The last time we had it, it sold out in 4 hours. Oh, did you join us?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
When the Vail Board of Realtors sponsored it.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
Good. So probably a number of you. So I would encourage you, if you haven't gotten to do that tour yet, to do so. And you can also donate on Colorado Gives Day. If not to the Watershed Council, hopefully to somebody. It's December 4th this year. And those donations get a boost through Colorado Gives Day through their incentive fund, so your donation gets a little bit bigger for whoever you donate to. So I hope you'll participate in that. And then you can participate in one of our volunteer projects. I mentioned a few today. We have a lot coming up next year that'll be a lot of fun. We'll get you out there engaging in the streams. Or for the Water Festival, helping with kids at an educational event in Morning Speed. We'd love to have you at that. And then you can attend a Watershed Wednesday like the Eagle Mine. And that is all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
And we'll have a 10-minute break after Tom's presentation.
information. So thank you for being here with us today.
You bet.
And I understand I'm going to help the first minutes here, so I'll stick around.
Yeah, I've got 2 videos. One is going to be, if it all goes well, it'll be the world premiere of Vail Valley Foundation's summer video makeup. So that's the first to see if I can get it to play. You know how this technology goes. Thanks so much for doing this. I think it's great. I see some familiar faces around. But just in case you don't know who I am, I'm Tom Boyd with the Vail Valley Foundation. I'm Director of Communications for our organization. Mike Imhoff, our president, wanted to be here today, but I guess he has a Olympic Exploratory Committee meeting, and that is in Denver. I think they changed the location of it. So he asked me to step in and talk about the organization, but I work really closely with Mike, thinking and talking about the organization all the time. So hopefully the B team can do pretty well for you guys still today. I did something that's kind of neat. I did grow up here as well. I was born in 1975. They didn't have a hospital then. So we had all these adventures over the past, and so I was able to kind of grow up in a town that had that can-do volunteer spirit. I think this town is different than other resort towns, whether you're in Hilton Head or you're in Europe or you're in Japan. This town is just different, and I always credited that just to the mentality of the people who came here originally. My dad came in 1963 and raised as much hell as he could, and also in the meantime really helped become a part of the community. Whether you were the head of the ski company or you're a blue-collar worker or you're a seasonal plumber, everybody kind of pulled together to make things happen. And that's why I think this town's different. I think it's special. And in my opinion, what happened was that all was formalized in 1981 under the leadership of Gerald Ford. A lot of other great people were involved, Gary Frankton, of course. A lot of other people said, you know what, let's codify this. Let's put this all in one place. And let's build a nonprofit that is out there doing good for the community and really building those sometimes intangible things. Sometimes those things are a little hard to put your finger on that make a community really special. And so other times it's more tangible things that we really can put our finger on, like Alpine World Ski Championships. That's a little easier sometimes to target and understand. So I'm just gonna, just real quickly, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we do. I'm gonna talk about how we do it. But what I'm really gonna talk about is why. When we wake up in the morning at the VBF, we have an extremely hard working group of people. We have about 60 full-time employees and many, many more part-time employees and volunteers, right? I know that do a tremendous amount for us. We really think of them as part of the team. And that can be 2,500 people. And then we have donors and we have volunteers for education. We've got all different kinds. So we're really built out of the entire community, including you guys. So thanks for taking the time to listen to us, understand who we are. Hopefully, when you're talking to your clients, you'll have a better understanding not only of what we do, but why we do it. So yeah, that's the question. I should say the answer that we typically give, why do? We just say our mission, and this is our mission: raise quality of life through arts, athletics, education. I mean, that does summarize it, but that doesn't move. I'm not I don't get improve arts, athletics, and education for them. So it's a little harder to tell that story why, but of course, video's the best. So I always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. It's me. Video's worth 1,000 pictures. So I like to play videos. There you go. Does it have sound? I can just narrate. Yeah.
As much fun as the winter.
There we go.
I feel very fortunate that I've been able to work.
Don't let me.
There we go.
The saying is, you come for the winter and you stay for the summer is so true. Like, the summer is amazing. There's concerts, there's outdoor activities, there's beautiful things to access, and it makes the summer as much fun as the winter for us.
I feel very fortunate that I've been able to work here for 17 summers. I wanted to be involved in the community on a different level.
I'm a sports and music and outdoor nut, so to be able to work in the sports and music and outdoor world, it's fun to be able to do something you love.
Summers have become a busy time for the Vail Valley Foundation. There are so many projects that are so important to this community. There's the GoPro Mountain Games, Power Hour Summer Camp, the concert series, and the Vail Dance Festival, just to name a few.
Hey, I've got my whole crew here doing a little 3-day meeting. It's just an all-hands-on-deck mentality. Any of the 60-plus employees at the Vail Valley Foundation will drop whatever they're doing on their weekend to go and volunteer for another department's event that's running.
So there's actually 8 presentations we created this year.
The Vail Dance Festival is a monumental collaborative effort. It takes hundreds of people from all sorts of backgrounds, our volunteers, our stage crew, our ushers and our clerk's office staff, and all our generous supporters. It's something that everyone makes an investment in, and you can see that when the curtain goes up.
Yeah, we're just going to set it up. The mayhem behind the scenes is what makes you laugh throughout the course of the day. There's a very committed group of people that work here and make it really fun. And they'll be here from 6:30 in the morning until 2 a.m.
You guys seem like you're awesome connectors.
It truly does take a village, and what we're able to do is bring that village together, whether it's the parents bringing them to the school, the teachers giving some extra time with the kids, the food service lady who wants to make sure every kid is fed. We convene all these together into our programming so the kids have many adults that love and care for them and want them to succeed.
You get so wrapped up in dealing with the customer service with the people and getting them seated, and you forget to watch what's going on stage. And every now and then I will stop and listen for a second and take it in. It is pretty cool to think that this is what I get to do every day. It's well worth every minute that you give to it.
It's a super fun visual for me to see 5,000 people hanging on every athlete's next move, to have them kind of colliding into each other with a raucous crowd at the I Bridge, to see people high-fiving and smiling and walking out of that venue at the end of a long Mountain Games day. It is a really kind of proud week, I think, for everyone at the Vail Valley Foundation. It's extremely rewarding.
20 years of my life have been spent at the Vail Valley Foundation, and you can't imagine having done many moments with my life. The one thing we all have in common is that we care about this community, and we want to see it continue to thrive in arts, athletics, and education.
I've never been in a place that's had such a strong community organisation that is willing to do whatever is necessary for that community. And I believe that's what the Vail Valley Foundation does.
There you go, folks. World premiere. Yeah, video's been a big part of the way that we're communicating, and hopefully that shows. Hopefully that shows in that. I mean, pretty much everything I came here to say today was in that video, so we could probably just go right to questions. But there's a lot to unpack inside of that video. I mean, if you know our organization well, you go, oh, that's Birds of Prey. That's the Villar Performing Arts Center. Oh, there goes Jen Mason at the Gerald R. Ford Amphitheater. You know, that's the dance festival. We all there. Everyone knows Martha. Everyone knows Martha and Jen, right? So, so you know that's what you know. So you're going to see in that video. A lot of you guys are going to already know that, and that's great. And that's why probably you've been successful in your careers talking about this community. And when people are like, boy, I really like it here, I think I'd like to buy a home, you have at your disposal that ability to talk about it, hopefully, not just with our organization, but the other great organizations in this community. Certainly ours is, in many ways, it's 3 organizations. Like I said, it's arts, athletics, education. So there's an efficiency that comes in doing it that way that it may seem like a lot, especially when you try to summarize it in a short video. But basically, you have level of efficiency when you have someone like me, for example, who works mainly in media, PR, video, communications, that kind of thing. I can do that work across all 3 branches instead of all 3 branches having to hire their own person to do it. So there's a lot of reasons why, structurally, why we exist the way that we do, even though it's a fairly disparate grouping of things to put together. Yeah, look at this fancy clippers, right? Oh, look at that. Oh yeah, this is cool. I like it. Those are the new seats at the Water Performing Arts Center. Has everyone been able to test out the drink holders? That's the job. Good. But I remember when we didn't even allow drinks in there. It was a dark time in our history. I want to clarify, I was not part of the organization when that was those days are not only over, but now we have drink holders. We're like assisting you in having you drink. You know, please visit valarpac.org. I think it's fun to come to the show. Everybody in this room can choose the VBF in one way or another, and ushering is a great way to be part of that community up there. Some great stuff coming this year to the Water Performing Arts Center, right? Big part not only of Beaver Creek, but a big part of the Beaver Creek community. It really does. Again, it creates these connections. You go see a show, and you see a friend there, or you end up having these conversations in the lobby. These are the places where our community gets together in a public way. And then you start feeling like Beaver Creek's your home. Like it's not just, oh, I have this great ski in, ski out, you know, condo or whatever, but also I have a community that I'm part of. Even if you live in New York or Dallas or any of the other cities where they announced today that they have more flights. STARS is a great example of that. I have 2 young kids. I live in Singletree, and they go to STARS program. 8,000 children go to the VPAC and enjoy our programming through supporting the arts reaching students. Pat and Pete Frechette, who have passed away now, left a legacy donation that is really going to keep that program going, although it needs more support, but it's on very stable footing. It's a wonderful thing. Especially if you're my oldest son who's really into Pokemon video games right now. Needs a little time in the theater to see what real life is about, right? Dance Festival, I think, is a favorite. You know, there's areas where we've done this, certainly in ski racing, but we don't try and go out and be the 5th best in the world at anything. That's just not how we like to do things. We want to be the best. And so the Vail Dance Festival has really become this place where, you know, you got to think of where it started from. The Bolshoi kind of came through town. It was like an accident. And of course, that same mentality that built this community. They said, well, we can do this, and then we'll do it next year. And then what do we do? Well, I don't know. Let's do this. Let's do that. Next thing you know, we have, Vail, Colorado, is up there with Stuttgart and Paris and New York and San Francisco as a center of dance. And it's specifically because we bring people together in the summertime to do things that they can't do when you're actually in New York City. Because in New York City, you have a program, you got to practice, rehearse, get it done. Choreographer comes in, he has 2 days. That needs to be set up because the New York City Ballet has a performance run that's good. That's not how it is here. It's collaborative. Damien is very good at being wild and imaginative and yet structured and disciplined. And so this incredible magic has happened under his guidance at the Vail Dance Festival. And in this area, I just want to show you guys how the dance world really pays attention. It is a global audience. These media impressions are phenomenal, 575 million. And I work very closely with these numbers. Media impressions are a little bit of a range. You're not going to have a very, very precise one, but I can say definitely with confidence that there is an accuracy to them. Maybe it's 450 million, but it's not going to be farther off of that, and it really is impressive. And the New York Times in particular has been phenomenal to us. Alistair, the dance critic there, unfortunately is retiring. Hopefully will make a nice impression of the next dance critic there. And that ties into the demographics that come to visit. And that ties, I think, directly into all your professions. A lot of the people that you may work with maybe heard about Vail first through the Vail Dance Festival, or maybe that was their first visit, or maybe their company or corporation decided that they wanted to be part of it sponsor it, and then came out. Or maybe chairman of the board of a large corporation who joins the American Ballet Theater board, and then he or she ends up coming out. So there are a lot of connections in dance that I think really sort of quietly put us on the map, even if you're not a dance aficionado. It's incredibly potent in terms of its reach. And so I wanted to highlight that today, because I think a lot of times we focus on the beauty and the artistry, but it really has this phenomenal media panache. It's phenomenal. Of course, we do a lot in the community as well to break down the barriers between audiences and dance. That's just, there's quite a few on there, but I wanted to show those to you real quickly. Ford Amphitheater is, again, it's another venue like the Black Performing Arts Center that we do run. Just one point of clarity, we work so closely with Bravo that it can sometimes people might merge us together. A lot of the people that are on our board of directors are on their board of directors, and most of their events happen at our venue. But we are separate organizations, although we do work closely together. And that's just something we're always trying to make that point in public, so folks understand we love Bravo, they love us, but we are two separate, distinct organizations. Obviously, Whistlepig Vail. Raise your hand if you know what Whistlepig Vail is. Some people know it and are cheering. That's good. Year one, funny name, right? That's like every other music festival in the world. It's a funny name, but ours is a little bit unique to our town. Really, it's named after the run on Vail Mountain, but the run on Vail Mountain is named after the animal, marmot, essentially, right? So, a musical animal, a fun, whimsical mountain animal. This is, rock and roll has not actually been that successful. Bravo, dance festival, amazing, just taken off. Rock and roll's been a little bit spotty, and call it more than rock, call it headliner music. Blues, country, hasn't always worked out great. Did anyone see Bob Dylan when he played here in the rain? All right, there we go, a couple of hands. You know, we've done some things, but we, as an organization, the community spoke loud and clearly what the community wanted, and it was immensely clear that what the community wanted was more headliner music. You know, what about Jazz Aspen Snowmass and Telluride Blues and Brews, and why can't we do something like that? Well, this is our answer. It's Whistlepig Vail. It happened largely in partnership with AEG. Putting together something like this is a lot like a Rubik's Cube. AEG makes that Rubik's Cube actually solvable. If you want more detail on that, I'm happy to answer some more questions, but basically that's how we made it work, and this was year one. It was very successful. So we're very much looking forward to next year. We already have one show on sale, which is Martin Short and Steve Martin. They are very funny. They do a little comedy thing. They're both very talented. They start playing the music. Then they bring on an incredible backing band and put on an amazing show. And tickets are like already flying off the shelves. Not sold out yet, but definitely very, very popular, and more shows to come.
Tom, someone said that, so last year was 4, that you're going to shoot for 10 this year?
Yeah, it's not quite how it works. In that whole Rubik's Cube model, it's more like we would like to do between 4 and 10. Okay. Right? Like we probably have 10 dates open, but matching together the band that fits our community that we like, that happens to be coming through town, and is in the right. That's what I mean. Like it's a whole rabbit hole of how that works. But having an AEG on board is like really, really helps that. You know, phenomenally successful there. And I can at the end, you know, happy to answer some more questions if you guys do want to dive down that hole. Free concerts. I don't know. To me, you talk about quality of life. This one always pops to the top of mind for me because I go with my kids. It's great. And I see everyone I know. It's fantastic. Run into pretty much everyone. I don't know. Everyone's just good. Don't forget we do Show Downtown in Eagle as well. So we do Show Downtown in Eagle, and we do Hot Summer Nights up in Vail. And then, of course, when we talk about why we do what we do, probably the easiest one to explain why is education. all of our education initiatives, all the work that we do is now branded. It's a recent last couple of years, but you probably hopefully come across Youth Power 365, all one word. Super unique organization. Now, if you go to any other city and really any other town, you're going to have a group that does early childhood, you're going to have a group that does scholarships, you're going to have another group. Remember I talked about Vail Valley Foundation's efficiency? Double that with the efficiency of Youth Power 365, because whether you're 3 years old and you're getting ready for kindergarten and you need, maybe some language help or math help, or whether you're a kid who's off to college and you need a scholarship, or maybe you just need some mentoring because maybe you don't have that family structure that you need in your life, but a little bit of mentoring will help you get from middle school to high school and get you on the right track. No matter where you are in your youth, we're going to be there. And you're going to run into some of the same teachers, you're going to develop those relationships, and again, you're going to have that level of efficiency that makes your organization really effective, so that the dollars and time and energy that we all give to it really do have pretty astounding results that we're getting better and better at tracking our impact, and you'll see a lot more of that in the coming years. We'll be able to talk about exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it and how we're getting better. So that's kind of exciting. Those up from that cradle career track, you got Power Up. That's your little tykes. Power Hours. That's in every single school. I mean, almost every kid who grows up here now is going to do Power Hours at some point. I did it with my kids that did Copa soccer. It's fantastic. And Power On. That's for college and career readiness. Okay, so you have those 3 segments: early childhood, K through 12, and onward. Athletics, this is our 3rd segment of the organization. Birds Craig's coming up. It will happen this year. The snow is good. The course is in fantastic condition. We've got incredible volunteers here. And I don't know if you guys know, Joanna does organize all our volunteers.
You'd like to volunteer? We still need you.
Yeah, we still can use more, but I think, how many volunteers do we have on this project?
Probably 600.
600 volunteers. So
300, probably 275 on the talent crew, and then the rest are, ambassadors, banners, venue security.
So when I talk about community and community connections at the end of this, remember that, right? That we're not just the 60 full-time people. We're actually all of you. We're just we're the standard bearers at the front of the march. This is, again, another one of those events like the Vail Dance Festival. It has an incredible international reach. My job is when 175 media come to town, I'm there to make sure that they're somewhat wrangled and that they have the information, and really what they care about is food. And from time to time, we even have beer in the media center, and then things really go well. We have a very big international impact, and what's cool about that is not only you're reaching that international audience, but you're reaching an international audience by definition while skiing. So that's always been a good fit for us. We had our first international ski race here in Vail in 1967. Does anyone know who won that race? There we go. And Jean-Claude Keely, and then the Canadian female as well. So we have a long history there, right? And that continued really probably most strongly when we brought Birds of Prey to life in 1997 and headed into the 99 Alpine World Ski Championships. 2015 Alpine World Ski Championships, obviously another major event in our town's history. But Birds of Prey is every year. Every year we do it, and every year it's phenomenal in terms of not only doing something that brings our whole community together in a really cool way, but it tells our story to the world. And that is part of our larger mission. If you look at our larger mission statement, that is a part of what we do. And that, I think, in the end is economically beneficial across the board for all of us. Colorado Classic Vail, we've done cycling events in the past. This is the latest incarnation of that. This was sort of a new formula. A lot of successes to be proud of there. And we're looking at next year and seeing, again, my personal take on this is that the cycling formula hasn't really been figured out yet, but we're working on it. And we want to make sure that, you know, like everything else we do, that it's done right and that it's done best in the world. So we're working on that. Again, I don't know how many of you actually attended the event, but there is tremendous international media coverage of this. So there is a real big benefit there as well. GoPro Mountain Games. Boy, this one just keeps getting bigger and bigger, doesn't it? I swear it was just like a couple of buddies of mine that put this together in 2002. They were looking for kayakers, and I happened to be one. I mean, it was very low key. I remember the town council and the sort of the powers that be were a little bit like, what are you guys doing? Well, now look, GoPro Mountain Games is tremendous. This is one of those events where I think it's a wonderful thing that's run by a nonprofit. If it was for profit, it might have already blown up too big, and the use that Lace Gold may already be long gone. I think what I really appreciate about Dave Gressman, who's really sort of shepherded this event for us. He's our VP of Sales and Sponsorship, actually based out of California, near GoPro headquarters. One of the few jobs that really does make sense to have out there. He comes here every month, still close to the community. And also Mike Imhoff, and what those folks and all of us have done is we've really kept the core of this alive. The spirit of me and my buddies that kind of started this thing, had some fun with it. Now, that's still alive. It's still a big, big part of it, even though now you have GoPro, you have GMC, you have really big companies that want to be a part of this. We reach a tremendously important demographic with this event, and it really captures the spirit of what it means to be in the mountain community. Exciting things are happening with this event. I don't have another world premiere for you, but my guess would be by next June, when the event comes back around, we're going to continue to have really big news about this event. It has so much growth potential that what we've been looking for is the proper way to channelize that without losing that spirit. We have some really good ideas to play, so stay tuned. This event's going to continue to be not only big and get more and more known worldwide, but I think also continue to be a really big benefit to our organization and our community. So you can see some of the reasons why you can't see that 80,000 spectators. It's a large seat. Over 3,000 athletes. I think it was started as 4,000 spectators and 200 athletes. So that was in 2002, which seems like ages ago. So
there's over 300 volunteers for that event.
That's a big one. Yeah, and there'll probably be even more. So we expanded in Lion's Head. That was kind of a big deal, and that's really gone well. We're going to keep going in that direction. Although I don't think we'll probably expand the footprint to like a county-wide thing. That's one of the ideas I think gets floated out there. I don't think we're going to go that direction. I think we want to keep that critical mass, kind of in town. Demographics is another one that I wanted to mention. It's why I think it's so appealing to so many people, media, and sponsors alike. And you can see again those top states of origin seem fairly similar, don't they? There's definitely some stuff going on there. This year, we're going to work even harder to reach that out-of-state audience. So you'll start seeing where the dance festival is strongest in reaching that out-of-state audience. We're going to try and make that a strength of the GoPro Mountain Games as well. Side note on this one, and I know Joanna knows this one, if you are talking about this event, people like to call it GoPro or the GoPro Games. It's a little tricky because GoPro is a camera company, and GoPro Games sounds like the camera company is putting on an event. It's a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit. We're community run and operated. It's the Mountain Games. GoPro pays to be the title sponsor. Teva used to pay to be the title sponsor. I'm sure some other company will pay to be the title sponsor. Let's give the credit where it's due. Call it the Mountain Games. It's a community event, and then they can pay for the right to have GoPro at the front of it. That's something I always stress a lot. No one ever listens to me. I just keep blowing against the window. Mountains Media, I just want to throw that in there because, again, major component of what we do is the amazing free concerts at that event. That's a big reason why we have a huge economic impact. A lot of people just come up to the shows, and the shows are getting better and better and better. again, that tie-in with AEG and what we're doing with Rock and Roll and Whistle Pig, like you start adding it all together, you're like, wait a minute, you know, we're starting to have a real rock and roll culture around here. It's pretty exciting especially for my demo. So that was actually a lot of unpacking the video, right? That was just saying, here's what we do. This is a lot of stuff that you guys probably already know. A lot of you do, it's a little refresher. And then how we do it. We do it through the help of volunteers. We do it with super hardworking staff of usually people who've been in the Valley a long time who give day and night to the organization. If you've ever seen Jen Mason in the summertime, you've seen her at the amp, right, at the Ford Amphitheater. So, like I said, we are really just here to represent the community. So the community in 1981, when we formed, had different goals, had different wants, it had different needs. In ski racing and getting a World Alpine Ski Championships was a big one. 89 was a huge need and a huge desire for our community. Well, our community's changed. And fortunately, so has our organization. We're not still doing what we did in 1981. As a matter of fact, the best thing about this organization is that it's always looking 10 years out. In 1981, they were looking at 89. In 89, they were looking toward 99. In 99, they were looking forward into the 2000s. And right now, we're looking 5, 10 years down the road. For the first time in our organization's history, we actually have a strategic plan, which, that's not old school Vail, I guess. That's new school Vail. But the good thing about it is, it's not, as Ann Speed said to me yesterday, who's our chairman, and she does go by chairman, by the way. She likes to be called that. So she said, there's 3 kinds of strategic plans. There's the kind that you write and you're like, it's done, and you never look at it again. And then there's the kind that, the second kind is the kind that you write and then you use as an excuse. You say, we're not, that's not a strategic plan, so we shouldn't do that. And then there's the third kind of strategic plan. That's the kind we have. It's a living document. And basically what it is, it's everyone who's in leadership in our organization, myself included, is tasked to go out and communicate in situations like this with the community and hear what people have to say. And we take that back and build a strategic plan based on what the needs, wants, desires of the community are. Education is a huge aspect of what we're trying to do right now. If you look at what's going on in our public schools, we have far more people than anyone could really ever imagine that are on free or reduced lunch, 37% of our students. And you wouldn't think that, right? Especially in the circles that folks like us are usually operating in. There are, I think, 25% of the parents of the students we work with at Power 365 make $24,000 a year or less. Household income, not individual. So imagine trying to live in Eagle County on $24,000 a year. Now, we're not going to go out and solve that on our own, even as Youth Power 365. But what we can do is that when that child gets out of school and they have nowhere to go, we can put them into one of our programs. And what you saw from Peter is, not only is that child going to be fed and get exercise, but they're going to be loved. And they're going to get taken care of. So that's a super important thing that we're doing. We've got the arts. We talked about Whistle Pig Vail. We talked about what we're doing with the dance festival, and Damien, who's now president of Juilliard. Did I leave that out? So we have, think about the connection between Juilliard and Vail that can blossom over time, or that can force it, but it can blossom over time. There's a lot of great things that can happen there. And then we have, of course, athletics with GoPro Mountain Games and all the growth that can happen there. So all that leads to, so that's the how of why of what we do. We know the what and how, we know the how. And then, to me, this is the answer of why we do what we do. Now, that's also the cover of our annual report that's going to be coming out soon. And that'll tell you everything that we did this year and kind of also help you look ahead. And what I do in my role and what we're trying to do at the Vail Valley Foundation every day is ask, why do we do what we do? Right? And there's a lot of different ways to answer that. But to me, it's because what we do is we build all those connections between yourselves and your neighbors, children and families, art and artists, music and the listeners, neighbors and one another. We are there to help facilitate all those connections. You add all those connections together and you get community. And you get a community that's unlike any other, in the world, like we just talked about in the beginning. There's not a community like this. So it may seem like you're just going to Block Performing Arts Center show. Or you might just be stoked that Robert Plant came this summer. Or you might be just really glad that your neighbor or your friend or your own children have someplace cool to go after school. But you add it all up, right? And it's, I think it's pretty special. So that's why we do what we do. That's who we are. And thanks for listening to me. Thanks for, please help spread that message. Please share that message out as you can. And let me know if you guys have any questions about how we book artists. Yeah.
You mentioned the Olympics earlier.
Yeah.
Has the foundation taken a position, or are you in the process of getting this here?
Yeah, we're getting community input. We haven't taken an official stance as an organization, but I know that the discussions, internally and like between Mike and between, listen to what Vail Resorts has to say on this. They're not dissimilar to what you're seeing in public. There's not like two narratives. There's not like we really want to make this happen, but publicly we have to take a different stance. They're really in lockstep, and the lockstep is transportation between Denver and Vail. It's a huge issue. And I think what we would like to see as an organization, so I worked in Torino at the Olympic Games, and I worked in Vancouver at the Olympic Games. I've worked for 4 different organizing committees, and I worked directly for the International Olympic Committee during my time after graduating BMS before coming back here to build our foundation. We can do it better than anyone else out there. Believe me. The Chinese are coming this year to study our event. When Vancouver did it, they came here to study our event. And then they went and they said, we want to do it like those guys, because we have a global reputation for doing it the best. So when we get involved in these discussions, I think what our stance tends to be is we've got to do better. So I think what Mike Imhoff is probably saying to a room full of people down there right now is, let's get more organized, let's have more clarity, let's have more vision, let's see the detail on these numbers. Because right now I'm not sure that the exploratory committee is really meeting Mike Imhoff's very high demands of quality. That's why I love working for him. But it's also, that's how we're going to approach it. So I'd say there's 2 things. One is, let's make sure if we're going to do this, we do it very, very well. But number 2, and the big one is transportation. Yeah. Thanks, Bill.
Just in light of your comment about the demo on rock and roll, I felt Bill and I fit into that demo.
That's right. We all do now, don't we? That's right. No, for real. I don't know. When did Steve Martin first play the banjo on Saturday Night Live?
Oh, man.
Right? Was you? It might have been. Yeah, it might have been on with John Denver. That's the thing, right? I think it's funny. You guys all know Michael Slaughter. I went to BMS, we grew up and whatever. He and I were talking about Whistle Pig Vail early on, and he was the first one to make a point. It's like, when we were kids, bringing a rock and roll show to the Ford Amphitheater would be like, that's for the teenagers. Well, now the teenagers, we've grown up. I can't see it, but I do have a few gray hairs there. And so I think you're right. I think rock and roll pop music is the full demographic now. It's not like, hey, we're bringing Whistle Pig Vail for the kids. We're bringing Whistle Pig Vail for everybody, right? Even the hippie music we brought last year. It was the Jerry Garcia music. That is not my style. Exactly. That is not my style. And that was a wonderful show. Everyone was super nice, well behaved. We had one twirler go down. That was, then we picked him back up. He had a scuffed knee, and you know they twirl. Yeah, he went down. We had one twirler go down. We brought him back up. That was it. That was the only incident we had.
Well,
Yeah.
I think what's cool is there's a revival. I have a 20-year-old, and he's playing music that I listen to. And I'm like, where did this come from? And then look at Bohemian Rhapsodies. You know,
Back in style. And 80s
And thanks
music.
for bringing Queen Nation, because they were awesome.
Queen Nation, yeah. No, and I think we're trying to get them back. I'm trying to remember how or where, but you know, we're trying.
They were so much fun.
And the other one is Super Diamond, that's like
They
super
are awesome
popular.
too. Yeah.
Those are all a lot of these. So now think about it, right? We have this like free concert funnel where like maybe you start out at Show Downtown and then you do Hot Summer Nights next year. You know, give it a couple years and you're at the VPAC. Look at I don't know if anyone went to Amos Lee this summer. He's amazing, by the way. Last time he played the VPAC, I mean, he had like 300 out of 500 seats filled. This one, it sold out, and you couldn't even get in there. I only got in because I won the VBF lottery. I had 2 tickets. I mean, staffers can't even go. So you apply, and I won, and got to go with my wife. It was phenomenal. The music scene's great. VPAC too, something that folks should understand. Really easy to get in and out of now. There's free parking now, 3 hours of free parking. You can get your ticket stamped at VPAC, or you show them your ticket on your way out. That's how that works. And then, so that used to be a big issue. Beaver Creek in general, I mean, I'm sure you guys all work on there in some degree or another. Sometimes people feel like it's a little hard to get up and down. That's just gotten a lot. As Vail Resorts said, although it sounded like a PR talking point at the time, charging $10 for parking, I think, has been a huge reason why. Because it used to just fill up with whomever, you know, whether they were going to Avon or whatever. Now, like, that parking space has really become a nice space. You can guarantee you're going to get in there, you're going to be fine, and then you just go up and down, or just go park up for a VPAC show. I think that whole thing's working out.
So parking is what? Or is that Postmark?
Yeah, Bill Montaigne. Yeah, and you go in there and it's free. I think BCRC's asked us to not like put it in our ads, like really, but to verbally try to do folks like you just show them your ticket, you go out. It is huge. Yeah, it makes a big difference. Yeah. And the trick is to park by the exit ramp so that when the show lets out, so you go inside, you can go right out instead of parking close to the venue. Then you're stuck there.
So with the expansion at Gold Peak, or do you think they'll try to put some races over at Gold Peak?
Yeah, that's a long-term goal of ours. We would love to have. We would love to be hosting female ski racers over Thanksgiving weekend, like next weekend. It's now the Killington race. That's been really successful, so we're probably not going to win that one. The following weekend, we have the men here, and that's like, you know, the FIS, the International Ski Federation, is a very sort of old school, big, rigid, structured environment to operate in, very much dominated by Central European people who have Central European interests.
Men.
And men. Yeah. No, it's true. Have you talked to Erin Kelly lately? We have, you know, Erin Kelly goes over to these FIS meetings, and she's, I don't know if she's under 30, but she's young, she's blonde, she's incredibly confident, she's very good at her job. And it's her and mostly over 60-year-old Austrian men like in a room together, and she just handles it so well. But she goes with our team over there. We would love to do that. Now, the reality is, for all the reasons I just said and more, it's very much an uphill battle. I don't know that we'll be successful in that. I think it would be awesome to do all the men, all the women on the U.S. tour come here all together over the course of like a week or two in the start of the ski season. But that's a pretty hard maneuver to do, especially because Killington's been massively successful. they have like, tens of thousands of fans. East Coast, big audience there. Female racers right now are doing great. We don't have quite as many racers, although does everyone know that River Radimus is going to make his first World Cup start? He grew up here. Al Radimus is a former head of ski and snowboard club Vail. He won the NORAM GS last year, so he'll be starting on Sunday in his first local World Cup. I think he'll probably get the start in Levi this weekend. But that's a really big story and really neat, and he's a great kid. He's only 20 years old. We don't expect him to win, but huge fun thing. We're also doing a kids zone up at Birds of Prey this year. Really good for people like me who want to bring their kids. It's like, if you know where the ADA platform is, staircase up about 7 by 12. We're going to let kids rotate in there. And they'll be able to actually see up over the fences. We'll have games, prizes, and autographs. Youth Power Free Kids Zone presented by TIA.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's good to know. That I'll have all that information will be going out tomorrow, actually, including you and out in the paper and everything.
Who's the contact these days if we have a major investor that we want to speak to?
Yeah, we have a new VP of development. We're really glad to have him on board. His name is Glenn Newhart. He comes to us from Arizona, where he worked at the Children's Hospital. He has a love and a passion in the history of the mountains. He lived and worked in Montana for a long time. So he has that magic element of understanding mountain communities. He's new, but doing a great job already. And that would be the contact. You can always... any one of us will channel you the right direction, but especially if you're talking about major gifts or somebody who's got that potential to really contribute in a major way to our efforts. Glenn is going to be the person. Mike Imhoff, equally as good. Mike does a lot of that as well. But yeah, you guys probably know Tina Varney. She's the other guys, but she was phenomenal as well. And really, since she left, we haven't. Until Glenn came on board, I think we were kind of searching really for that right person. Although we loved the folks that were the predecessors, it really is now the right fit. And we do send a letter. We have a welcome wagon letter that goes out to folks who buy homes of a certain value or more. And we do send them a message talking about what we do and why it's important to contribute. I personally think it should be every new person in town, because if you're volunteering, or if you want to go and volunteer at one of our education after school events, if you want to help with the GoPro Mountain Games, there's so much you can do. That's why we started to use the word connect. Just connect with us. Just make that connection, figure out who we are, and be a part of it, because that's what it is. It's a conglomerate of people.
That just made me think. Do you encourage the families, say, of the kids, the part, the 65 and so on, in volunteering? They obviously don't have the funds, but they can give back. Is that something that is occurring?
We don't really do a ton of that. I think what happens is, as soon as you have kids working, you get into child labor, like gray zones, child labor law gray zones.
I'm not talking about the kids, I'm talking about the parents.
Oh, sure. Yeah, actually, it's funny. I debated whether or not to talk a little bit more about our parent mentoring slide. Huge aspect of what we do at Youth Power 365 is parent involvement. So the program, one of the main programs is called Parent Mentors, and that means that if you have a child who they're not completely kindergarten ready, or they're having a little bit of struggle in school, we will actually train the parent to come in and sit in the classroom, be a teacher's aide, which is the teacher's love, and see their child in action, help other children, and kind of get integrated into the school system, give them a voice to learn to speak up about what their needs are, what their issues, problems might be, and then take that, the toughest part, the most important, take that back to the community that they're a part of, and help create an exchange of information back and forth between those kids. And it's been incredibly successful. We have a really neat ripple chart. It shows the ripple effect of our work, and how it's already in the past 2-3 years made a really big difference, and we will continue to do that. Yeah. I could go on and on. We do a ton of different things, but I think is that
just a quick break for you guys. If you could be back here like 2:40, we're going to have 3 presenters from Vail Resorts. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you, guys.
Now we are going to hear from Vail Resorts, and with us today we have Doug Lovell, who's the VP and COO of Vail Mountain, Beth Howard, who's the VP and COO of Deer Creek, and Phil Metz, who's Senior Director of Marketing for both Vail and Deer Creek. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having us. We're open tomorrow. That's what That's our headline. You know what? After for Vail Mountain in particular, Beth and I were just talking. I don't remember the last time we opened Deer Creek really, but in Vail it was 2002. So it's been a long time, and after the last couple of years of actually opening a couple of days late, we're really excited about getting open. I was up there today, and looks really good. We still got a lot of work to do, but there's going to be a lot of terrain, I think more so than we actually thought when we announced that. And more terrain that can come online quickly. It's good. There's a good 3.5, 4 feet of snow up there. So what a difference a year makes. Wow. Yes. So today, though, I think we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the brand reimagining stuff that we've been doing at Vail and a couple of the projects that we have there, that we have going on there. With that, I'll turn it over to Phil. Phil's actually, he's the guy that really does all this work. Beth and I just kind of for the pretty faces.
Yes, that's good. Well, we were talking about that in the lobby as we were waiting. With operations, you can't really try things and then not work, because with marketing you can just, oh, that didn't work. Let's try again. Oh, that didn't work. And you finally get something that works. That's how we do it. So when we thanks for having us. We've come here the last several years. We put together for both Vail and Beaver Creek items of interest, I think, that you'd be interested for your own business, that your clients will be interested in, on how we're progressing the resort forward. Both Vail and Beaver Creek have been optimizing the brand and brand position to continue to position Vail as the world's premier mountain resort, Beaver Creek as the world's best luxury family resort. And so we do have some videos to show you today. The videos we brought are actually videos that we showed at our leadership welcome backs for all of our supervisors, all of our managers, all of our directors at the resort. And so this gives you a sense of what we're asking our employees to deliver to the guest. So we thought that would be relevant for all of you. So we've got a Vail video, and then we'll go through some Vail updates, and then a Beaver Creek video, and go through some Beaver Creek updates.
I think the pioneers in Vail had adopted a point of view that anything was possible, that when problems came along in the early years of Vail, we just said, we'll do it, there's a way to do it, and went ahead and did it. And that's why Vail got built, and that's why it turned out the way it did.
Legacy means that we have a responsibility to carry on not only the past, but move it forward. We're the next generation for Vail, and that gives us lots of power and lots of responsibility.
You know, I look at the story of our founders and the work that they had to go through to create Vail, and how hard it was back then to create Vails and build service and deliver on our guest experience. And I try to use the hard work that they did and teamwork to apply to our everyday operation and to try to deliver the best guest experience we can.
Our founders really were all about teamwork, perseverance, and their passion for the mountains and their passion for guest experience.
It was all about getting things done. There were no obstacles, there were no walls. We delivered exceptional guest service from the beginning, and we have an obligation to continue to do that in the future.
If you're leading the ski industry, that means that people are looking to you to see what's possible.
We are constantly evolving. We're building new lifts. We're giving people more access through our grooming initiatives to connect with this terrain.
There's not a reason not to do something. There's always a reason to do something, and we just got to figure it out. And say what we did in the past worked great in the past, but what are we going to do going into the future? How are we going to make the changes in technology and the changes in the ski industry?
Vail shapes industry by looking beyond the industry, and I think that's what we have to continue to do to continue to push this resort forward.
Vail is the best ski resort in the world. Our job is to keep it there and to make sure that we're innovating and concentrating on the experience to make sure that our guests feel like our experience is differentiated from the experience that they get at any other resort. And I think that should be our legacy, is that Vail is like nothing on earth.
Limitless means that we have the ability to transform what is a feeling that you have when you're at Vail into something that's tangible.
Our philosophy of like nothing on earth is one of those statements that takes you out of restrictions.
That vibe that we all feel, that knowing smile that we share with each other after, an over-the-head day is something that is truly magical, and that's something that we get to benefit from a business standpoint here at Vail. And, the way that we take care of our guests, I think what separates us from all the other resorts across the globe.
We have the opportunity to create experiences like nothing on earth and make that more than just a habit. Limitless means we can be as creative as we want and really push where we can go as a resort and doing that together.
That's our team. So that we felt that relevant to bring. Sorry if it sounds a little low. That's as high as we can get. But that's what we're using, not just to promote to guests, but to actually help our employees understand this is the type of brand and experience that they're supposed to deliver. Doug's going to talk a little bit later about what that means from improvements and from a capital standpoint. And with the brand, what we're trying to deliver, which I think you'll know, is like nothing on earth. And what's happened over the course of the last decade is our employees haven't necessarily understood the best way to how to deliver that to the guest and bring that forward. We've had great guest service programs. We're one of the leading resorts in guest service, yet they couldn't find a tangible way to actually own like nothing on earth. And so we shifted that internally to talk about Vail as the world's premier mountain resort. That's a little bit easier for our managers to manage against, or our directors to create initiatives against, where everything that we do should be at the world's premier mountain resort level. It gives us the ability to hold our employees accountable to that. It's more education for our guests and what they're expecting. And then ultimately it's fun and innovative that our employee can actually is that world's premier. It gives us something to measure against. The other item that we shifted, and we're bringing this to the community, which that's why we like to come in here, is we've shifted the brand pillars around how everything's operating. So over the last decade, the brand pillars for Vail have been the mountain, the village, and culture. And so those seem to work from a guest education standpoint, or how we're actually advertising to guests, but our employees weren't really able to action on, how do I action on the brand pillar of village if we're actually on the mountain? So we've shifted those. You saw that video, and now we've actioned into brand pillars, which are legacy, leader, and limitless. That's the foundation of the Vail brand, and how we're actually communicating internally to our employees and externally to our guests. And then we've actually, Doug and I and Kristen Kennedy Williams have been investing a ton of time with the town on how we're actually going to bring all of these pillars to life together and stop the separation of, well, the mountain does this and the town does that. There's actually a lot of effort going on with the town. We had one of our first ever, I think it was the first ever retreat with the town leadership and the mountain leadership, with the primary purpose of figuring out how to blend guest experience together better.
Because our guests don't differentiate between whether it's the town or mountain.
Yeah, and so if you're the world's premier mountain resort, but not the world's premier mountain town, then you're at conflict. And a lot of the new brand pillars actually go back to the legacy of how Vail was created. So the legacy of Vail is actually something we ask our employees to do. What will your legacy be? The founding of Vail was around legacy, around being the best and holding it together and creating something that was world class. The foundation of leader is around innovation. How can Vail continue to innovate the industry and be out front of everyone? And then limitless is really pays homage to the vastness of Vail, the back bowls, the iconic experience, as well as limitless possibilities on what have we not even thought of yet, have we even thinking of Vail. So that's new. We're bringing this to a lot of community boards, and the town is on board with this, and our employees, when we launched at our leadership launch just a week ago, there was a lot of positive reaction to it. And then how this then manifests itself is we've created an employee innovation team. They've come up with this new mantra. So hopefully you actually hear this and our employees saying this on the mountain this year, which is Vail every day. It's how they're going to uphold the legacy and the leadership position of Vail. So every day, how are you going to uphold the legacy? Every day, how are you going to be a leader? It's a mantra that came from the employees, not leadership, on how they're going to bring this to life. So again, hopefully you hear this from our employees this year, but it's the mantra that they've come up with.
It just seems like we got a lot more traction. Like when we went and talked to the town about a year ago, we started talking about legacy, and it really captures, I think, the pride. I think people feel like a great sense of pride in Vail, and when we showed it to many of our stakeholders, I think they felt that. Especially, I feel like we're 2/3 of the way through. Like, we started with legacy, we went to leader, and I think people are getting that now. I think now we just need to get them to grasp onto the limits. But yeah, we literally less than a week ago we actually showed this to all of our managers. We have about 350 like supervisor managers that work on the mountain, so they all got to see it about a week ago. That's good.
Yeah. So why is it important to you? I think the continual investment in people experience and your clients can count on that Vail is delivering that year after year. That's why it's a solid investment to invest in Vail. Some new guest experiences that you'll see in Vail. This also came from a group called the Innovation Team. We're trying to actually create more of a sense of arrival to what is the iconic part of Vail. So you'll start to see these entries that actually the slot is just behind these. So when you come up chair 3, 4, yeah, when you come up chair 4, you'll get off on that and you'll actually have this framing versus not having that. We feel like that's a good for destination guests. It's a feature opportunity. It actually pays homage to what's behind that. And also, as part of the initiatives, we're introducing and expanding 5-star grooming, which was our grooming initiative last year, where we increased the grooming in the back bowls significantly. We're going to continue that this year, and many of you probably understood you saw the slot groom almost every day. And that actually opens up that terrain to our destination guests that might be a little intimidated, but they're allowed to have that Vail experience with a groomed experience.
Yeah, well, I think the back bowls are the iconic part of Vail, and a couple of years ago I think, left to their own devices, ski patrol make everything black and let everything be bumped up so people slow down. So, like in the back bowls, everything was, I can say that because I used to be a ski patroller, but everything, including the catwalks, were all black to keep people from going back there. It's kind of like, well, you want people to go back there. There's intermediate terrain in Blue Sky Basin, yet you can't get there without skiing black roads. So, kind of the idea was born to let's start grooming these trails more, and kind of 2 aspects. One, to get people out there. And then once you get them out there and experience blue sky, and then somehow you got to get them back on kind of blue room terrain as well. But then our cat operators were they were psyched about it. It was challenging for them. We have the largest cat fleet in North America, and once we gave the guys the resources with winch picks and other things so that they could go out and groom trails that probably had never been groomed before. So last year we were grooming Ricky's, Genghis, Cow's Face, and just a lot of interesting terrain. And when we first started doing it, we got some interesting feedback. Some people said, "Oh, you can't groom the back bowls. That's for real skiers." Yet, and then you can ride up chair 5 now, and you look over, and where's everybody? They're all on the groomed trails. So it's been awesome. And when last year I'd go into a bar or a restaurant, people are talking about, oh my gosh, Ricky's was groomed today. It was so awesome. So I think that had a huge impact.
So we'll continue on that. We significantly increase the grooming And we've got the snow. A lot of our initiatives last year were delayed a little bit, so we're going to be able to keep up the season with the initiatives this year.
Probably I should have said this. And another part of this is by taking more advantage and getting people to spread out in the 5,260 acres that Vail has, it also gives everybody a little bit more room, which provides a safer experience for our guests as well.
And then like you saw the baffled, you'll start to see we're educating our guests too on the history of Vail. So we're calling them legacy stops. So on signature runs, a bit of history around that run. Depending on the guest, I think we're doing 10 to 12 this year. If that seems to be a nice amenity for the guests, we'll expand that over the course of the year. So look out for those this year. A similar lineup from events, with the exception of two things that I think are worth noting. You'll notice over President's Weekend, we're adding an event called Legacy Days. Legacy Days is again going to be a new signature event that we want to create as a tradition. It potentially might move into January eventually if we can get some traction around what Legacy Days actually is. We picked President's Weekend just because that we have the most guests here to do that. But a lot of it's going to be paying homage to the Vail history, the legacy of Vail. There'll be things like actually recreating the hike up to Ptarmigan Ridge that Pete and Earl did, that they actually hiked up and saw the back pools for the first time. And then parties and events, but a lot about just paying homage to that. And we partnered with the town this year to create three 10th Mountain ski downs. One of which will be during Legacy Days. There'll probably be one at Christmas, and the third one's to be determined. But again, it's going to be actually having the 10th Mountain in the uniform ski down, fireworks down Peppy Space, and into the village and parade all the way to the 10th Mountain statue at the
That's pretty cool.
And then the last thing I wanted to mention, did you have something more on that? Snow Days is significantly larger this year. If you've been around, you've noticed that Snow Days has kind of started to dwindle. This year is actually probably bigger than it's ever been. It's a 4-day festival. It starts on Thursday night with a bonfire. We're having the Indians do pray for snow dance. Bonfire is going to be in Golden Peak. 2 major concerts on Friday and Saturday. We've got Savor Vail, which is all the restaurants coming together to promote that. Snow Days Live, where we'll be promoting all of the live music across any bar that's participating to really tout the animation over Snow Days. The reason that this is possible is the partnership that the town and the mountain have created, and the town has stepped up significantly to help fund this to get Snow Days back to where it really needs to be for early season. So, if you like it and you see a town council member, thank them for that contribution. Also, if you're excited about it and you would like to see something similar for Springback, town council is making their budgeting decisions for Springback on the December 4th meeting. So if you see a town council member and you'd like to see Springback at the same level as Snow Days is at, you can let them know that. But this should be really exciting. We're seeing a lot of occupancy spikes due to the animation that we're bringing. So again, new this year, probably important for you to know and your clients to know.
And it's a great example of the work that we've been doing with the town, being one.
And then, snowmaking.
Yeah, so fortunately, this summer we actually spent several $1 million doing some snowmaking improvements at Vail, which you're never going to see because they're all in buildings. It's mostly pumping and valving. But right now, we have a proposed snowmaking expansion for Vail that would kind of change the configuration of how we open Vail Mountain. And essentially what we would do is this is Mid-Vail. We would add snowmaking to Swingsville and Ramshorn, and our opening configuration would be Swingsville, Ramshorn, and Chair 12 for a beginner product in Gold Peak. It gives us about an additional 1,000 feet of elevation, and with elevation comes cold temperatures, and we can make snow there quite a bit earlier than we can on Born Freeze. In a year like this, it really wouldn't matter. In a year like last year, though, where it really would have mattered, we probably could have had that terrain open to the public in early November, where we were actually late this year or last year getting that open. But essentially, we'd be adding snowmaking. Vail right now has one of the smallest snowmaking plants in our company. We have about 400 acres. This takes it to about 850 acres, which would be about the same size of a snowmaking system as Beaver Creek has. Yet it's on a ski area that's like 5,000 acres instead of 2,000 acres. But essentially, the pattern would be, in a normal year, we would go from here to connect in Eagle's Nest and Lion's Head Village. And in a good year with good temperatures, we would have both villages open on our opening day. So that's pretty exciting. It's actually in front of the Forest Service right now, and hopefully we'll get approval in January, February. This would be the largest snowmaking project, I think, ever in North America, and I think we've provided a great guest experience. And, really, what it does is what we want to do. The whole reason that we're doing this, and it's a very expensive project, but what we really want to be able to do is consistently open our mountain in mid-November so that we can make Thanksgiving a destination holiday more like Christmas and continue to build the Thanksgiving period, where right now, and especially after the last couple of years of not getting open and not knowing what the snow conditions are, we've kind of trained our guests to make last-minute decisions as to whether they're going to come. Where if we can consistently be open and the guests know that, we think it'll make the Thanksgiving period that much better.
So we're going to do a quick Beaver Creek update, and then we'll have time for questions afterwards. So Beaver Creek, same thing. I'm going to show a video that we used at our leadership welcome back of about 300 people, managers, supervisors, around celebrating all of the successes that Beaver Creek has had. As you'll start to see, we pride ourselves on guest service at Beaver Creek. We're actually #1 in the organization. So I'll let the video do a lot of that talking, and then we'll have that come through. with that, again, we wanted to showcase you what we're showcasing to our employees and our absolute commitment to providing the best guest experience. And so with that, I'll introduce Beth Howard, COO of Beaver Creek Resort.
Thanks for having us. So that is what our employees just saw last week. So what we decided to do is take 3 minutes and look back at last year, and I think the real headline around that was on one of the worst drought years in our history, and we were able to accomplish that much and really deliver on our brand, which is what we do every single day. So world's best luxury family resort, 5 words, that's our vision statement. And we have 3 brand spires that really ladder up to fulfilling that brand promise. And you'll hear us talk about the first one, legendary attention to detail. And when we talk about that, because we're in a luxury brand and in that space, we have to deliver on cleanliness and organization and how our mazes are set up and are the cookies warm and on silver polished trays and how are people wearing their name tags. All those things in a luxury brand matter. And I know you all get that because you're selling luxury real estate, right? So we do really put a lot of focus into the detail, and hopefully you all feel that when you experience Beaver Creek. Our second spire is being professional hosts. So as soon as you come into the welcome gates, we want you to feel like family. We want you to feel like you're coming home, that you can relax and connect and really enjoy yourselves up there. And really have that emotional connection of having fun, being happy and excited and safe all at once. Because that emotional connection and how you feel is what our guests take with them. And they go, you know what, I want to go back there again because it felt good. I can't remember what I did, but it sure felt good, so I'm going to go back. And then finally, verified experiences. So our third brand spire is verified experiences. And in that spire, we try to bring experiences to life for our guests. We're looking for something they can't get anywhere else. So if it's a first tracks, or a family sleigh ride dinner, or a savor and ski day at Trapper's Cabin with their own private chef, a wine excursion in McCoy Park with our Nordic program. So those are the categories and spires that we really focus on. And we live, eat, and breathe it up in Beaver Creek. And we recognize our employees around those spires. If we're seeing that and we see that behavior, they encourage it with recognition programs and really have made these spires tangible and this vision something that everyone can rally around. So we introduced it last year. You saw the outcomes that we had. It's very simple. We repeat the message over and over. And we have lanyards that say our vision statement on it, so our employees can't escape it. we are sharing all the time what we want them to do, and we've had great success. So yeah, we are up over 500,000 cookies served. So we're approaching that McDonald's. We're on 1 billion cookies served. We've done something. So, but we're very excited. We open on Saturday on the 17th. That's the earliest Beaver Creek. Like that guy said, I don't even remember. I've been in Beaver Creek for many years. I don't remember ever opening that early. So the mountain looks amazing. I went up on Friday in a snowcat, looked at the race course and some of our top terrain. And Red Buffalo Park, our upper portion, you could have skied last week easily. We don't have snowmaking there, so it's all unnatural. It's amazing how good that looks. So we'll have top to bottom ski on Saturday, which we haven't had in a long time. We have over 230 acres. We'll probably be popping up more terrain as we go each day. And we've been making snow 24 hours all the way through. So race course is looking awesome for World Cup. We're looking great for opening day. We're warming up the ovens for cookies, and we're ready to go. So there's my opening.
I like it. And, so what do we want you to take away today? I think first and foremost, from a guest experience, guest service, Beaver Creek is number one. It's number one in our organization. We're very proud of that. I think that your clients can experience that difference. And we do what we call our GX survey, guest experience survey. We get hundreds of thousands of guest replies every year. Beaver Creek gets over 10,000 a year. The rankings of that are very scientifically secure and sound. And Beaver Creek is number one in our organization, which I would then attest as the marketing person, I can say this, we're number one in the overall ski industry. We have enough resorts that's a broad enough statistical advantage that we know. We're number one in likelihood to return, likelihood to recommend, purchase process, lift experience, ski school check-in, safety, attentiveness, rental experience, rental efficiencies, rental health, restaurant experience, restaurant quality of service, and restaurant quality of food. All number one at Beaver Creek. And we also want you to know about some of our new innovations this year for the guest experience. So 3 things we'll talk about today. Village Connect, Haymeadow Park, Chapter 2 of our Parks collection. That we'll talk about. And Extraordinaire, a new in-village activation. Village Connect. No more dial-a-ride at Beaver Creek. If you like, you can still pick up the phone and call. But we've modernized the dial-a-ride to Village Connect, basically on-demand, Uber-like transportation connecting all of the village together. Guests will be educated to download the app. We'd encourage you all to download the app as well. And it's just like Uber. You point in where you're at, you tell you where you want to go, it will tell you that your ride will be there in 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 3 minutes. It will track your dial ride to your destination, so guests are no longer waiting and wondering when their ride will be there. They'll be able to be sitting in their hotel room or in their residence, call it, and know when it's coming. So a huge modernization for the guest experience, partnership with the Beaver Creek Resort Company and the resorts for this year. Jen. Next, you talk about this stuff.
So, how many folks went up to Red Buffalo Park last year? Up in there and enjoy that terrain. It's a lot of fun. So last year we did a reimagination in that part of terrain. We had a very straightforward lift replacement to get rid of our fixed grip to a high-speed quad, and we were really doing that to improve our circulation, relieve congestion on chair rate and Grand Traverse, and get people skiing this terrain, which is just amazing. And we can use everything that goes with it. And it's for the beginner and low intermediate, so it's perfect for our guests. So we thought, gosh, we're replacing this lift, which is a significant capital investment, but what could we do to really leverage that investment and reimagine the whole pod? So we created Red Buffalo Park as an experience. So you saw the snow sculptures coming in. That was really a way for our guests to connect with the animals of the forest through snow art. And we had a skill zone for our instructors so they could have a place where it was wider and it was more protected. We had a cookie cabin. If you're in ski school, you get to go in that cookie cabin up there in patrol headquarters in the lower level, and that's been my big hit of the century. And if you ever go in there to get warm up, we won't turn you away. There's a little insider scoop for you. You can say, Beth Howard said that I can come in here and warm up. But all of those things have created this incredible experience, and it was so well received by our guests. We saw it show up in our data, ski school satisfaction, all those things. And they could stay in that pod with ski school or the guests and not go all the way down the Grand Traverse to Spruce Saddle now to get a hot cocoa or a place to warm up if you were in a class. So huge success. So we took that same approach to Haymeadow. So Haymeadow is right outside of Park Hyatt. We have the beginner gondola, which we called it Buckaroo back in the day. We rebranded that to Haymeadow Express. That was the original name of the very first lift that was ever there. And we're doing that to make it less kid-centric, because we have all generations learning to ski there, and sometimes an adult would go, I don't want to go on a Buckaroo, but they've never skied before. So we're trying to make it more of a family learning area and more approachable to multi-generations. And then we've taken the tubing hill. We had a tubing hill up there. We've reshaped and recreated everything and essentially restored Haymeadow back to its original terrain footprint. So our instructors have more to teach with, because it was very congested in there. We improved some of the flows and pinch points. We moved some conveyor carpets around. So all of that will be much better for teaching. And then about right on the H here, we have put in a new skiway called Saddleridge Way. And now you can come off Gold Dust. You don't come into this area. You come on your own skiway, and you can ski into Saddleridge for lunch. And we have revamped the whole menu. It's an express buffet, a la carte, and we're trying to provide a table service experience for our non-private club members who have access to all of our fine dining in the cabins. This is now opening up an option for our guests who want that. And then, well, you get a cookie when you come in. And so all of this is going to be, it's branded as smart terrain, so there's all kinds of different things that our instructors can work with. And then the ranch is our kids' restaurant, so downstairs it's exclusive for kids who are in ski school, and upstairs was just kind of an open warming area. So that is now, as we speak, being transformed into an old-fashioned ice cream parlor. So anyone can go in there, and you can get a banana split, an adult beverage, hot cocoa with some Baileys, a cup of soup or a grilled cheese sandwich, anytime you want when you go in there. And if you come up the gondola, if you're on foot or snowshoe, you ride that complimentary, and you can go up and just view. the guests, your friends skiing up there, we'd love that. And it's more of a nice space now where you can get something to eat and something warm to drink. Or you can come on down to Sour Ridge and get some lunch. So that's our new, you'll hear Hay Meadow Park. So we have Red Buffalo Park, this Hay Meadow Park, and then ultimately from McCoy Park. If we get that approval from the Forest Service, which we hope to very soon, that would be our terrain expansion and just incredible 250 acres of groomable bladed skiing in just a very natural, beautiful environment, which has beginner and lower intermediate terrain as well. So for our guests to have start here and learn here, fall in love with the sport, go up to Red Buffalo, fall in love with it even more, then they graduate ultimately in McCoy Park and then the Big Mountain. So we're very excited for how the strategy is rolling out. It's been very well received so far, and we're just getting ready to launch it here on Saturday. So hopefully it'll come up and see it.
The ski out from Saddle Ridge is over to McCoy.
There's no ski out. It's ski in only. We can do Village Connect out, or we have a little Sherpa, which is a snowmobile that's been modified to carry passengers, and we'll bring you right back up to the snow on that skiway.
Okay.
So it's ski in, Sherpa out, or Village Connect out. So I wish we had ski out, but we don't.
Okay.
But it gives an option at least for diving.
That ship was new this year, was it? Wasn't there last year?
We had one, we activated Sour Ridge last year, but we didn't really try hard enough, I don't think. This year we're putting everything into it, and we're marketing it, and we're making it part of this whole initiative. So we're hoping that our guests will gravitate over there and enjoy it. It's an incredible venue. I've been there. So.
Last new initiative that we wanted to talk about today was animation called Extraordinaire. So you would formally know these maybe as the fests, Prez Fest, Spring Fest. And so as part of our vision, and I would encourage any of you, if you want to attend the annual Beaver Creek Resort Company meeting, there is an actual long-term vision that's being laid out by the Beaver Creek Resort Company. This is a initiative out of that to modernize those experiences that we're having for families in the village. We felt the fests had kind of run their course. We've engaged with a new experiential company out of Boulder to actually bring these to life. And so Cheer, which will be the holiday program of Extraordinaires from the 21st to the 5th. Spangled is during President's Weekend. And then Bloom will be the spring activation. So a lot of new fresh ideas, much more modern, much more what our guests are experiencing at other locations. So it gives an off-snow activation to round out the Beaver Creek experience. So hopefully you'll experience these this year. Your clients will. Welcome feedback, as this will be the first year, so we can keep optimizing them. And with that, I wanted to leave some time. How much time do we have for questions?
I have you guys wrapping up at 3:30.
Okay, so
6 minutes.
6 minutes. So, Doug, would you like to join the question and answer? Great.
Question. Where does Fashion Gulch and Beaver Creek fit in your Beaver Creek plan?
We look at it. Yeah, we look at it in totality. Yeah, when I talk about Beaver Creek, I talk about all three communities. We're just trying to connect the dots now, so we can get them all activated. They're looking pretty good, actually.
Any new changes in Gulch or Arrowhead?
No new changes there other than some maintenance that you will never see because of the snow maintenance buried. But you'll see it in the outcome of the snow surface. So we just did some subtle changes over there. We did do a big signage refresh all over the mountain, so you'll probably see that change from a visual perspective, but no big changes in those spots.
Kristen, that transit tab, does that keep track of the buses as they're going around, so you know how long, like the regular buses rather than just the dial-up ones?
So we have the fixed routes and we have the on-demand routes. So we're tracking it all on computers down in our reception center.
But can you go on the app and see like when the next West Outback bus is coming?
You can go on there and look at fixed routes. I'm not sure, I don't have the app here, but you can go in and look at those. So we have two different routes you can look at.
Yeah, so if you're parked in the lots, you can see when the next bus will come.
Yeah.
Just like if you're in the village waiting, you don't have to wonder. You can get an extra beer. Cool.
So that's more efficient for our fleet to be able to leverage it this way too. You know, it's not tying up vehicles or people looking out their curtains when it's a dial right coming. just really modernize it. And it's a change for some, and we did a soft test of it last spring, and then we've been testing all summer. So now we do our hard launch, so it's been pretty good.
My clients love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, they tried it out this summer.
Oh,
Thought it was awesome.
thank you. It's great to hear.
I heard rumors of just more grading in back holes in places.
Once or twice today I've been asked that. Yes and no. We actually had a crew. We had a crew this year that was that spent the whole summer brush cutting and taking out deadfall and stuff like that. The one thing a snow year like last year shows us is all the work that we really need to do that usually is covered up by snow. So I do think you'll see maybe like when Blue Sky was built almost 20 years ago. The trees that started growing back into the trails and stuff, so we cleaned a lot of that out. And there is a plan to potentially add new terrain back. Like when we built Blue Sky, we actually have permission. It's already approved to add more terrain. We just haven't done it at this point in time. So, yeah, should be good.
And where was this tree cutting?
It was actually all over the mountain, but a lot of it was in Blue Sky.
Gotcha.
Because that hadn't been done for a long time.
Do you have a plan when you're going to open this additional acreage?
Yeah, I think to Beth's point, I think probably for the weekend, I think we'll get Northwoods and.
No, I mean for these.
In the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we'd probably have to still go through a NEPA process, and then we have to get the money to the capital dollars to actually do it. So it's not a huge priority right now because as much as it would be nice to have some additional terrain, Vail's got a lot of terrain.
Yeah, no, from a marketing standpoint, it would be something else to talk about.
Absolutely.
That's all.
You can count on marketing continuing to push.
Sorry, one more question. Sure. Maybe a suggestion. I find myself talking to clients all over the country, and people are pretty excited for the mountain. There's some snow, not something, places that we don't think of out here. So maybe somebody from your company, maybe you can do it. Just an overall view of the areas you've picked up and what kind of improvements you've made that you know all the money you put into Park City. We talk to those people all the time, so we're kind of a second level marketing department. It's really helpful to know more about what we're doing in some acquisitions.
Sure. Actually, like with Sunapee and Akimo and Crested Butte, I think we'll see that next year. A lot of money went into Whistler this year, much like Park City was before. I think what we tend to find when we do acquisitions is that we go into some of these resorts and there's been a lot of deferred maintenance, which then requires capital dollars. And then generally what we get from Vail and like the town of Vail is, don't send all your money in Whistler, we need some here too. So, but we spend a lot of money in capital each year, and like for Vail specifically, we've replaced in the last 12 years we've replaced 12 chairs. There's a few more that we would like. We would like to do restaurant remodels at Mid-Vail and Eagle's Nest, and then the snowmaking project. But right now, the snowmaking project would be my priority. I think what you're getting at a little bit too is that we really saw this one in Tahoe when we just had Heavenly, and when we added North Star and Kirkwood, pass sales really took off because now there's 3 areas that get passes to get that. And I think we could see something like that in New England now as well. I have a lot of friends in New England and I think they're much more apt to buy an Epic Pass knowing that they can do so. Yeah.
Did you replace all those pommelets in Okemo?
I've never been there.
Eons ago, there was nothing but pommelets.
Really?
And it was famous. New England in those days were riding the pomelo.
I don't know. I know that, like in our urban resorts, we put in huge snowmaking systems because they make snow and they make more. And like in those resorts that snowmaking is like a year or a season-long activity where we generally make snow early in the season and then put it all away. So, yeah. I'm kind of anxious to see what those resorts are like.
They used to tease Richie Woodworth when he was on the tour skiing. He grew up at a chemo, and they used to tell us joke about the fact he got away from the chemo to get on the tour to see what another ski lift was.
Sounds good. And the media changes you probably see in the newly acquired resorts are the guest service approach, and there'll be the integration on best practices and things like that, and how to mark them out and set up a lift maze and scan a ticket. So those things are automatic. We try to integrate those right off the bat for just standards and elevating everything, and then the capital like that, so that we can take a cycle to get that done. But then that's been our approach all the way through those acquisitions. So.
Well, that's classical Eastern resort with a couple others that are gone. Suicide Six and a bunch of those others were real experiences to learn to ski.
Bill, have you guys looked, how are we doing on pass sales since the new icon passes?
We've embraced the competition. I think it's actually been a good thing. I mean, from a high level, the fact that we've got another formidable competitor talking about season passes just helps the ski industry as a whole for commitment. We're happy with where our passes are at. I think in our last earnings call, we released that we were up 20% year over year in passes, and a lot of that had to do with our acquisitions. I'm sure Icon's doing well as with their passes, but it's been good competition. It's also been a catalyst, I think, for some good partnership with the town of Vail, meeting as the flagship resort. I think there's competitors coming for Vail now, and we've got to amp up our game. So I think we've looked at it as a really healthy competition, and we're happy with where things are at.
I was at a conference last Friday with a group of brokers, one of which was from Crested Butte, and he talked about the usual trepidation when you come to town, and how over the last 2 months or so, that trepidation has gone the exact opposite. And the program, much like Park City, went from trepidation side. Whoa, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, and Icon has announced capital plans, so I think the more they invest in their resorts, and it's good for the industry.
A question in general: how are you doing this year for your need for seasonal employees, not just for Vail and Beaver Creek, but since you're all over the country now with your expanded operations? How are things looking for getting employees that you need that are the frontline people that are touching the guests that you're seeing? Since you guys probably have your pulse on this.
Yeah. No, we do, and it's been. I think this year went a lot better than we thought it was going to, and we were able to hire. I think what we see though is that it's much more competitive out there than it has been when we see people taking. They start and 2 days later they take a different job or what have you, and so I think there's a little bit more movement that we're going to have to get used to. But like specifically in areas like with operations where we need hundreds of people, we actually did really well this year. So yeah, so we actually in a down economy, in a recession, we usually do really well. So
the unemployment's so low across the country. It's going to be very challenging because I guess my general question would be is how can you somehow, like, people that are touching the most amount of our guests are the lowest paid. They want those seasonal people, whether your employees, the food services, hard goods, soft goods, they can make or break, but they're the ones that are making 10, 12, 13 bucks an hour. If used to be patrol making 12, 13 bucks an hour. How can you jack up the pay and the benefits and give them, say, the perceived appreciation, and still obviously you're for profit. Your stockholders want that profit, big profit.
Well, yeah, and we need employees. We've taken our our minimum wage from $9 to $12.25 in the last 3 years, so like a 30% increase in our base wage for many of our new things we are doing this year is we're doing $5 lunches for employees, so they can, whether they're working or not, but there'll be a lunch that there'll be a choice of lunches that they can get for $5. We do a lot of, we have an employee dinner tonight that is free to the employees and stuff, and they get a ski pass, and for a lot of that type of employee, that's what they, it's interesting. There's like a tier. They want a ski pass, they want to ski, And then generally they have a second job that maybe doesn't give them the speed pass, but they take those for what they think work that does. So, yes. Oh, you're
Sorry.
It was that way in 1981 when I first moved to my first town. It was.
So I have one more point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right. So this morning we announced a pretty significant update to our commitment to zero. And so I encourage all of you to go to epicpromise.com. You can actually read what we're calling a progress report, would it be an annual report. What we announced today was a partnership with a clean energy company where we'll be purchasing 310,000 megawatts. And it's a 12-year partnership with this clean energy company. That energy basically offsets the electricity that all of our North American ski resorts use in a year. And so it's major progress that we're making. We've also announced a partnership with eco product company that'll reduce our one-use like utensils and plates. That'll actually eliminate 300 tons to landfills next year. And so there's more information on that, but it's a huge announcement. Please go to epicpromise.com if you'd like to learn more. We were really excited when that announcement came out. Yes. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. This is our last presenter of the day. Chris Romer.
Saved the best for last. So thanks everyone.
I have to follow Vail Resorts. Doug and Zep and Phil and videos and all kinds of things. I promise not to have any of that. Those guys are fantastic. You get me last. They have professionally produced videos. I don't. So it's okay. I'm Chris Romer. I'm the president and CEO of Vail Valley Partnership, for those who I don't know. We are the Chamber of Commerce Regional Economic Development Group and do some tourism work as well. So I'm going to run through a couple things for you guys today. Macroeconomic environment, our local workforce trends. There were some workforce questions that came up. I'm glad that none of them pointed to me because I've got a couple slides to talk about that specifically. An air service update on Eagle County Regional Airport and some of the trends we're seeing there, as well as a programming update at the partnership and Vail Valley Economic Development. So we're going to run through all of that. If you guys have questions as we go through, throw a hand up. That's okay. It's better. Don't save questions. Pull it up as the information might be on the screen, and we'll go through everything. So from a macroeconomic standpoint, that obviously affects us both for visitors and for our local economy. It all starts with what's happening at a macro level. So this first chart that you see is the Consumer Confidence Index year over year. So you don't need to be able to read this chart as much as be able to, this year, prior year. The yellow is the change in the year over year. Again, for you guys, the pink or purple line is the current year. That's last year's consumer confidence, and this is month by month how much consumer confidence changed. Consumer confidence is one of the biggest indicators we can look at from a visitation standpoint. Snowfall, obviously very important. Other things important, but if only given one indicator on a macroeconomic standpoint, consumer confidence is the one to look at. How do people feel with money in their pocket? When people feel good, they want to spend it. They want to take trips to places like Vail and Beaver Creek. So this continuing, I pushed the wrong button. Don't let me have a remote. That continued growth in consumer confidence is a really positive thing. Similarly, Dow Jones, the stock market, another macroeconomic trend that some of these are tied together, of course. As you know, year-over-year growth in month-over-month growth almost in the Dow Jones with a couple of fluctuations here and there is a really good trend for us on the macroeconomic standpoint. This is a mashup of, I think, 50 different economic indicators all put together in one. Consumer confidence board, a lot of other things that are all put together in one, that they look at these trends year over year. And you see, again, dating back to September of 2016 through the most recent iteration of this, which was at kind of the midsummer time frame, continued growth in these economic indicators. Really good things for the travel industry as a whole, and then it's our job, locally, Vail Resort's job, everyone else's job to get people to come here. But really good trends from an economic standpoint. That should trickle down to you guys as well. When all of these macro trends are trending in the right direction, consumer confidence, the stock market, these indicators, this mashup of indicators, that's a really good thing for people with disposable income, right? So the indicators are good. Unemployment. When you first look at this without the header, you say, oh God, you just said they were all good. This one's really bad. Because look at that, these are all going down. Unemployment, national unemployment rate year over year. National unemployment is under 4%, about 3.7%. Local unemployment, we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's even lower. Save your questions, because we'll get to it. We'll talk about local workforce issues and things. Not necessarily incredibly positive, right? It puts a lot of stress on businesses when there's really low unemployment. National economists would tell you that 3.5% unemployment is zero. There's about 3.5% of people who just don't want to work, can't work, show up in the numbers, but probably have face tattoos and whatever else. I don't know. I pick on people with face tattoos. I don't know why. So when you're under 3.5%, and like we are at 1.7%, it puts a lot of stress on businesses. We'll talk about it more locally coming up. So nationally, it continues to shrink as well. It's not a resort community problem, right? It's across the board. It's across the board in lots of different geographies. It's across the board in different industries and in a lot of different industries. It's not unique to us.
Chris, don't we really have a factor that doesn't even show that, and that is that baby boomers who are now 72 years old, the oldest, have retired. So when you get to that unemployment rate, your actual employment levels are at areas we've never been to in recorded history.
Correct.
So what kind of a forecast does that give us?
I'll talk about that a little bit in the local section of what it means to us. Okay, with our aging community and with a need to develop our talent pipeline and what that means to our businesses and what it means to our housing stock, frankly. And without getting too far down that rabbit hole now, because I do have a couple slides on that, and if not that exact point, ones that are connected to that, Mike, that consider as in the next 10 years, people who move into retirement age that live today in a workforce housing unit, and I use air quotes for workforce because they're people who live in their home and they work, so therefore it's a workforce housing unit. I don't care how much it costs. They live and work. When those people retire and stay in their homes, that's no longer a workforce housing unit. Uh-oh. Right?
Well,
so it's exactly aligned with what you're saying. So I've got some stuff that I think will address that, and if I don't address it exactly, I'll try to in more detail as we get to those slides.
And you figure that the last of the baby boomers are 55 today.
Yes.
So that'll be 65 10 years.
I've got a slide for that.
Okay, good.
I promise I do. It's almost like I knew Mike would be here. As you should. I appreciate you. You know that. Local workforce trends. So what are we seeing locally? This talks about it a little bit. Our labor force continues to grow. We have a labor force about 35,000 jobs in Eagle County. Unemployment rate 1.9%. It will be lower in February and March. Closer to last year was 1.7%. It's hard to get much lower. We're the people who are that 1.9% who can't find a job. They probably have those face tattoos that I talked about earlier. I don't know. And the unemployment change is actually up 11% over the same time last year, right? So,
that's
well, but 11% from 1.9, so it was 1.9 lower than it was 1.7.
Yeah.
Now it's 1.9. So what's the reason I throw this up there? Yeah, please.
Quick question on that 35,000 number. So that's seasonal employees as well?
That is the labor force in Eagle County.
Okay,
That's right.
so is that is what changes?
That's
okay.
Chris, when we say Eagle County, how much of that's over in Roaring Fork Valley?
It's over in the Roaring Fork Valley as well.
So
I have this data that I can sort by town.
Okay.
I have this data that, and you guys could do that too. It's on our website at vailvalleymeansbusiness.com in our data center. You can look at the demographics, you can look at the economic profile of every town, including Edwards, which is not a town, but you can sort by Edwards because it's a statistical area. You can't sort for Eagleville or Beaver Creek, right? Because they're not statistical areas. But it does include the Roaring Fork. You can dig it down. It's really hard to break out without. This is a screenshot. I'd have to do the manual time, and someone else can do the manual part. So, what does all of this mean to us? And I share this slide because, like Betsy, I want to make a joke every once in a while as well. For those who remember Gary Larson and the Far Side, this is one of my favorite ones. And the reason I share this is because there's this kid, he's at the School for the Gifted, and he's pushing like hell on the door, and he can't get it to open, even though he's a gifted kid, right? So we're a gifted community, but we still have our problems, we still have our challenges, right? And sometimes the answer is right in front of our face. So, we do a business survey every single year, a workforce study that we've been doing for 12 years now. One of the questions we ask is, what is the barrier to growth in the local economy? Unsolicited, no multiple choice, no anything. What is the barrier to growth in the local economy? If you look here, this is a direct screenshot, unedited, of verbatim answers from business people who took the time to fill out our survey and took the time to put an open-ended answer. Every one of them, I pushed the wrong button again. Every one of them is housing. Now, some of them talk about a lot of other things. Lack of daycare, wages, lack of talented, skilled workers, but everyone started with housing, right? So it's a significant challenge and will be a significant challenge moving forward as the people that Mike talked about earlier move out of the workforce and stay in their homes. You laugh, but if you haven't thought about it that way, that everyone in Single Tree that's 55 plus that works, or in Eagle Ranch that's 55 plus that works, who plans to retire at the quote-unquote normal retirement age of 65-ish. If they stay in their home, it's no longer a workforce housing unit. And where are those jobs going to be backfilled, and where are those people going to live? So, just a quick snapshot. You guys know about that. I'm not going to talk too much about housing. Eagle County 2017 employment by industry and wage, and we just don't have the 2018. These are annualized data, yes, we don't have 2018. We will have 2018. And no real surprises here of what Eagle County's economy looks like, right? Eagle County's economy, led by tourism sector, accommodation, food, arts, entertainment, recreation, retail, trade. You've got construction, real estate, local government, which is sometimes not always thought about when you talk about major sectors. School district, certainly the towns, the special districts, and you go down the list of what some of these are. But obviously very tourism driven, as we know, right? You guys know that. You're like, Chris, why did you put that slide up there? We knew that. One of the things I wanted to share is this bottom chart. Employment share by wage. And I have about an 85 slide presentation on that same website, Vail Valley Means Business, that goes into this on a regional basis as well, with Garfield County, Summit County, Lake County, Pitkin County, and you can see the point of bringing this up is based on area median wage, is how high wage, low wage are determined. These are not my definitions, so don't pick on me if you don't like the categories. These are defined by the state. And if you look, Eagle County's economy, 36% low-wage jobs, 29% mid-wage, and 35% high-wage jobs. And again, you can pick on the definition. It's not my definition. I would argue with the methodology a little bit, but relatively balanced. When we look at employment change, this is annual employment change on a year-over-year basis, and look at where the job growth is happening, right? So looking at that same chart, where the job growth is happening is predominantly in the mid-wage and high-wage jobs. And look at those sectors. Look at local government growth. Right?
Your taxes are going up.
Your taxes are going up. Or because of Gallagher, they're going down. My taxes went down last year in Eagle Mill. I live in Eagle Mill, my taxes went down because of the Gallagher reset. That's a whole different discussion, a whole different presentation. But I pay most property taxes. But again, look at the job where the job growth is growing, and look at where the job growth is cutting down. Something like wholesale trade we don't have a lot of. That's probably like 3 jobs, and it's just massive on that because it's not a big sector. And when you look at it, it's 120 jobs in fact. But you look at where the job growth is happening, and you look at where the wages are happening. That's a good sign that those mid and higher wage jobs are the ones growing at a higher rate than the low wage jobs. To Mike's earlier point, components of population change. So a little bit hard to read, so I'll walk you through this. The blue line is natural increase, that's childbirth rate. Red is the migration, the in-migration of people moving here. So you look, since the recession, our growth has been driven by natural population growth, almost exclusively. And we lost some people there as well in the recession time of people moving out. But if you look at our growth since 2009, primarily birth rate, right? And that takes into account people who move, people are still moving here. But for everyone who moves in, if there's no red above, for everyone who moves in, there's someone moving out, right? So it's really interesting if you look at the 90s, holy smokes, we were really, really growing at a pretty fast rate, right? A little bit of fluctuation, and then they all had kids, right? They moved here and then they all had kids. And now there's still people having kids, but our growth rate is really become more of our growth will be driven, has been driven for the past 10 years, not by an influx of people moving here, but by people who are already here having kids. Right? So when you talk about growth and where will growth happen and how will growth happen, it's happening because people continue to have kids. And historical population trends. Hard to read, a little bit of an eye chart, but this is regional. Eagle County, Garfield County, Lake County, Pitkin County, Summit County. When looking at this individually, for Eagle County, it's good to be able to compare it to what are our neighbors seeing, what are other communities seeing as well. And we'll make sure Mel and the team send this out to you guys so you have it again. A lot of this was pulled from other reports we have on our website. But when you look at the percent of the annual growth, Eagle County at 0.72, Garfield County 0.75, Lake County 0.81, Pitkin County 0.6, look at Summit County 1.23. And look at the state of Colorado at 1.4. Right? So we're not growing nearly as fast as the state. We're not growing nearly as fast as our neighbors across Vail Pass in Summit County. It's interesting, right? And looking at it all the way back to 1990, you can see, and specifically in the chart back to 2010, of how the populations have changed in each of these mountain communities. It's really pretty interesting to look at. Now, we're bigger than those counties. Right? So when you look at a percentage change versus a net change, you still see we've grown more people than Summit County, even though they're growing at almost double the rate. Right?
But Summit County and Grand County, both from a real estate market standpoint, as of the end of last year, both equal or exceeded their real estate peak at a boom.
Yeah.
So whereas we were $500 million below and along with all the other. So they had a huge influx in real estate transactions to correlate with the increase in volume.
Yep. Told you I'd have some slides on this. Population, age 65 plus by county. Again, a regional comparison looking at the 65 plus. Blue is 2015, red is 2030. And this takes into account looking at historical rates of migration, of people moving away or people moving in. This is the forecast number for 2030 is not assuming everyone stays. It looks at the historical numbers and says if the history of the past 20 years, or dating back to about 1990, they usually look at these, so the past however many, even more than that, 30 years. If those trends continue, what will we see? And look at the growth from just over 4,000 to over 10,000 for Eagle County. Similar in Garfield County, not as much in Pitkin County or Summit County, although they're still seeing growth. But that Eagle County growth and that Garfield County growth is monumental, and it has huge, huge impacts for our businesses, for future job opportunities, etc.
Do you have a
Here first.
Do you have a breakdown of permanent residents versus?
This is permanent residents.
This is permanent, but the 50,000 that you just showed on the slide before, was that permanent or does that include?
Permanent residences.
That's permanent?
This is permanent residences. Residents.
It does not take into consideration seasonal employees, second homeowners.
This is not seasonal employees, this is not second homeowners. This is people who identify this as their primary residence.
So 20% of the population will be over 65.
Well, our population is expected to grow as well because of the birth rate that we saw.
The graph, the last graph was showing, that one shows about 6,000 people over 65 in the next 10, 11 years. 6,000 over 65.
Absolutely.
65. So people that are well-to-do, one or two people in a house, taking up more housing, not working, not available for volunteers. A lot more volunteers in the next 10 years.
A lot more volunteers. So you know who's going to be looking for volunteers? Sweet Basil, Starbucks, Vail Mountain, right? And we joke, but yes, no, you're reading that exactly right. There will be 6,000 more age 65 plus people in this community, not accounting for any increase in people retiring, choosing to move here to retire.
Yeah. Basically, all the baby boomers.
All the baby boomers retiring.
65 and above. Up to 75 million people. Those of us who pass away, off of that, but that's what it's about.
Yeah. And assuming that happens at the same rates that it has over the past 30 years, which is maybe safe to say, maybe not, because people are living longer and everything else. So, but let's assume that it all stays the same. This should be a really scary graph for a lot of, not a scary graph if you're 55 and you're going to be part of that crowd, but a scary graph from a workforce standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a community standpoint. Also, it could be an exciting graph from an opportunity standpoint of some of the job sectors that are expected to grow significantly are services to 65 plus. Retrofitting homes, things along those lines, healthcare positions to that market. So that's a different presentation. I have data on that as well, and we have some of that posted as well. But this is it's an interesting slide, and I included some of these because I think it's, from a local standpoint, no one's really talking about this stuff yet, right? I've been talking about it for like 2 or 3 years. This is coming in 15 years. Now I'm saying this is coming in 10 years. It's like, pretty soon I'm going to say, this is coming next year, and then everyone's going to say, what in the world just happened? Where have you been? Where have you been? So, when we look at migration, and migration is a weird word, and this data is a little bit outdated, but the trends are the same. I just don't have this updated from the state. Net migration by age. So, what this tells you is 0. Here's when people start to move here. So this is the same. 0 would be in and out. One person comes for every person who leaves, right? Below the line at 100, that's 100 3-year-olds leave for every one 3-year-old that comes in. Look what happens in early 20s, around 22. Boop. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, we have a lot of people moving here at that age. Look what happens around 26 to 27. Whoop. Right back to 0. And then we start to see almost every year, more people leaving than coming. And then look what we see here at 65. No. It stabilizes.
Yeah.
It stabilizes. So this ties to that earlier slide, because people at 65 are not moving away. They're stabilizing. Or some people might be coming to retire here, but it stabilizes. It's not, you're not seeing this of people leaving. People are leaving from 30 to 60. Combined with people staying at 65 and 6,000 new 65 plus year old people in the next 10 years. Okay. You don't need to be great at math to know that the numbers don't work. So shifting a little bit away from those trends into specifically what are our businesses seeing and what are our businesses telling us around workforce-related issues, around economic-related issues. This is from our workforce study, again, available on the data center. Average length of time positions remain open until they're filled. We have a lot of history here, with 12 years worth of history on all of these questions, most of these questions. We add a few here and there. Purple at the bottom is 1 week. Blue, that big chunk in the middle, well, mostly the middle, not the middle so much in recent years, is 2 to 4 weeks. That green is 2 to 3 months, and that yellowish at the top is 4 months or more. So last year, 58% of jobs were open for 2 months or more. 58% of jobs. So what does that mean? Creates more stress at the place of business for the people who are worked there, because they're probably being overworked. They're probably doing someone else's work as well, trying to do that. Only 43% of jobs being able to be filled within that 2 month, that 1 month of being posted window. That creates stress on businesses. We've seen it. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But the trend line of jobs being open for a longer time as the economy improves, it's exactly what Doug said. None of this is, we could look at the economic indicators I shared before and probably directly correlate what this means. A couple scary slides. I'm like, I should have been right before Halloween now. I've got some scary stuff here from a business standpoint. The number of unfilled jobs at your company. So 31% of jobs, 31% of businesses have an increasing number of unfilled positions. About 2/3 are stable, so that's good. How many new positions do you anticipate adding in the upcoming year? 76% of businesses plan to add positions. 76% of businesses plan to add positions in the next year. So 3 out of 4 businesses want to grow.
We got
31% of them have open jobs today.
We got 400 realtors that can all go to work for them.
Betsy wants all of you to work so she can sell houses.
Yeah.
So again, the businesses hope to grow. Businesses plan to grow. Businesses want to grow. Businesses have open jobs. We have a workforce challenge. 60% looking to add 1 to 4 positions. Another 17% looking to add 5 to 10 or more. It's interesting. High numbers of businesses looking to grow and wanting to grow. And what is the experience that businesses have when they try to hire? Well, availability. We asked this on a 5-point scale. The 7-point scale rather. 1 being terrible and 7 being excellent. 4 being right in the middle. What's the availability of workers? Right? Well, it's okay. It's not good, but it's okay. What's the quality of the workers? Right? And what is the stability of the workforce? Like Doug said, people work for 2 days and then they go to a new job. We're seeing that. The data is showing that as well. There's a lot of transient, even more than normal, and people moving from this job to that job for 25 cents an hour. So businesses are having to be really creative around what benefits do they offer, what flexibility do they offer, how do they, I mean, there's businesses that you've probably seen that have signs on the door that were closed this summer for lunch or closed for breakfast on certain days. I'm not going to name them, but you probably all saw some of them. I can think of at least a half dozen businesses that were closed on days they were normally open historically, and they just said, because we can't find workers. My words, but one of them said, because we don't have the workforce on their door. So you go to the door of that restaurant, we're not open on Mondays anymore because we don't have enough employees.
Don't those components push the envelope which the fast food chains have already come to, and that's AI?
Yeah, sure.
And that's
absolutely,
that eliminates those three problems.
For
capital investment.
It does for that sector of jump, for sure. For sure. So if you didn't hear the question around AI and fast food restaurants and things, so for some of it, it does speed that process up of how do you do that. But that's not, I'll use Sweet Basil as an example because I love that and I love Sweet Basil. I don't think you're going to go to Sweet Basil or Lotur or Matsuhisa and punch an iPad for your miso black pot. I hope not.
But there may be a tier below that if you end up doing it.
Absolutely.
And beyond the fast food restaurant.
Sure. I agree. I agree. So a tough time finding employees. So why is that? And again, this is one we've asked for years and years and have a lot of benchmark information on. We ask employees' experience finding healthcare, childcare, transportation.